What's up, everybody? I'm Abatage, and welcome to the Fantasy Critic League post-draft analysis podcasty type thing, whatever we're calling it, which we're kind of doing as a monthly thing in place of the roundup, which was initially put into the HLTB podcast. I'm now kind of doing my own thing because if you're hearing this, you're watching it on YouTube, and you can see that there's probably going to be some footage along with the audio. But initially, to kick us off for the year, we thought it would be a good idea to start off doing a look back at the draft, which we've just completed, and have a little look at different people's picks and what we think of them and that sort of thing. And to join me, I have our second place competitor from last year, FrozenRoy. Welcome, Froy. Say hello.
Yo, it's me, FrozenRoy. Here he is, in the flesh. You know, you could call it the Fantasy Analyst League, because we analyze the Critic League.
I like that. That's a good one, yeah. Now, I just wanted to also put up the top, you actually like actual football as well, don't you?
Yes, I don't only like football. I do fantasy baseball. And when I was like 10, I did fantasy NASCAR. I've been doing fantasy sports for probably almost 2 decades.
So, yeah, we've basically got an expert to help us out.
This year I entered 4 fantasy football leagues. I won 2 of them, got to the finals in another. The last one I missed the playoffs.
Cool. So, yeah, very well versed at drafting and all things fantasy, anything really.
Yes. Although Fantasy Critic is definitely different in some key areas.
What kind of key areas would you say?
The most obvious is that a normal fantasy league isn't not even just that it's more active, but, you know, like a football league, there's a game every week and you're watching the performance of the player every week and evaluating it.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, with this, unless there's new info about a game, you're not like monitoring the performance and deciding what to do as much.
Yeah, it's a bit more just waiting around for things to come out, isn't there?
Right. It's more keeping about what is going to potentially come out than what you've already picked. Like last year, if you were somebody who brought into all the rumors, I forget who got it last year, I'd have to look, you could have gone Metroid Dread because there were rumors about a Metroid game coming out, for example.
Yeah.
And then you'd get a ton of points and have a nice boost.
So, yeah, we're going to go through, you know, all the picks.
Yep.
So we could be here a while. We don't know, but we're just going to have a chat about every single pick that got made during the draft.
Yep.
And what we think about them.
And we're going to go in draft order. So we're going to go by user instead of by game, because there's no reason to jump around every person.
Yeah. To keep it kind of making sense, we'll stick to users at a time, which means our first person is, funnily enough, FrozenRoy with Frozen Frog.
That's right, Frozen Frog with the weird punctuation. Just so you know, if you reverse the all capitalized letters, it spells the same words.
Now I see what you're going for. So right about here, my recording stuffed up and I lost Froy and we had to reconnect. So I just wanted to comment on this here because unfortunately Froy's audio is not as good for the rest of the recording, but that's purely my fault and teething problems from this being the first one. However, hopefully I'll get better at it and we'll get more used to it in the future. But I think it's fine enough to listen to and there's still lots of good discussion had, so stay tuned and I'll do my best to clean up the audio, but ultimately I'm sorry if it's a bit jarring in parts, but it's just one of those things. Anyway, on we go.
So, my strategy last year and this year was what to focus on. In my opinion, of what I was doing. I wanted solid release dates, not like solid ones, because we were still in the pandemic and we still are.
Yeah.
You're going to have more likely delays, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a solid release date, especially an earlier release date, then even if it's delayed, it might still release in the year. You know? A game that releases February 17th might get delayed to September or whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing I was looking at an average of 8 points per game slot was what I was going for. That gives you 80 total. Now, if 80 will win, you know, that's going to depend on the year. It wouldn't have won any of the current years, but it would have been close the first year, which was 88. And, you know, obviously you hopefully hit a bit higher than your average on some of your picks, you know.
Well, yeah, to get an 8, you only need a 78 for each game, which is kind of low for some. So you've got a lot of room to move.
Yeah. Well, the key thing is that since it's an average, you know, you gotta figure not all your picks are gonna work. You're gonna hit like Chris Taylor's hit a 73, and that averages out with the fact I hit like an 82. But last year it worked out for me. I hit almost exactly what I wanted. I hit 82.56.
That's pretty close, yeah.
Something that was notable is I was the only person where all of my games released,
and that is something that's pretty rare. At least in the last couple of years, it has been. I mean, already looking at your draft picks, you've got 4 of 5 have solid dates.
The only one that doesn't have a solid date has a full demo and gameplay footage of all the characters and trailers. So I feel pretty confident that game will come out. I had the bonus this year of having the first pick, which for my strategy was very helpful.
Yes, and of course, I had little bets on my own that whoever got the first pick was going to pick the game that you picked, which was Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. I actually almost didn't pick Elden Ring.
Really?
I was considering like Breath of the Wild 2. Will probably score higher than Elden Ring if it comes out.
Yeah.
And the other one I was considering was Everdread's pick, Horizon Forbidden West. But I figured Elden Ring would score a bit better. But also, Elden Ring gets to go into the flex position, which was actually made me decide to pick it.
Ah, okay. So that had an influence on you choosing that anyway.
And, you're not going to get a better flex position pick than Elden Ring, right?
And, of course, that's because it's a new gaming franchise. So, fortunately, it's not just a sequel to Dark Souls or something. Just looking at the scores for the previous games, like they're all like 88, 90, 91, 90.
I don't think in terms of like the Souls-like games, FromSoft has ever put out a game, or if they have, it was like 30 years ago, that reviewed poorly.
Yeah.
Like, even if Elden Ring underperforms, it'll probably get, what, an 85?
Yeah, I think like a low score for that would be still a pretty good score for the league.
Right. So it's very safe as a pick.
Yeah.
Which is what I was looking for.
Yeah, I was hoping someone might counter it just for the lulz, but a game that did get countered by Big Rick Energy, which is your second pick.
Yes.
Is Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin.
Now, I think this game's a lot more interesting to talk about than Elden Ring. So, with Stranger of Paradise, I could see this game scoring like an 85 or really high, or scoring a 60.
Yeah, right.
So this is my risky pick. Okay. One of the reasons I picked it is that, so when this game released, people were like kind of joking about it and weren't really sure of the quality. But they had a second demo not that long ago. And all the people who are like fans of the game who played it, and even some of the reviewers, all said it was a really big improvement, and they actually changed a lot of stuff.
Right.
In addition, I feel like things like memes can sometimes actually be beneficial because publicity can be an influence on reviews.
Yeah, okay.
Like, the downside of this game is if it ends up something like Final Fantasy Type 0, which was kind of like a precursor to 15 and Remake.
Yeah.
But just kind of ends up a very standard action game. It doesn't elevate. The story's kind of a nothing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't really stand out as much.
Right.
Well, and it is Team Ninja, and I have a lot of faith in Team Ninja.
I mean, Team Ninja's made some mistakes in the past, and...
But even their mistakes aren't too bad.
I don't know, some of their mistakes haven't gone too well. It's also a Koei Tecmo game, and Koei Tecmo is not bad.
Yeah.
This is the really risky pick of mine. It could flop pretty hard, but like, one bonus, Final Fantasy games usually kind of review decently by default, right?
Yeah, they've...
The other thing is, since I picked first, I was at the end of round 2.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I was originally really hoping, unfortunately, Sappho and Matt messed it up, that either Pokemon Legends or Kirby and the Forgotten Land would fall to me. And they got picked right before I did.
But the next one I think is kind of an interesting pick.
Really?
Which is King of Fighters 15.
All right, go
only
on.
because
I'm interested.
Only because I think it'll do well, because King of Fighters is like very well respected and a solid fighting game series. But outside of fighting game community, they don't really get much attention. You know, most people look at Street Fighters or Mortal Kombat, that kind of thing.
I mean,
whereas
the only attention you care about is enough to get enough reviews to count, right?
Well, and that's the thing. But like, I wonder if King of Fighters will get as many reviews as, say, another fighting game. Not that it matters so much, because I think they'll still be favorable.
I think it will, because SNK is big enough that they get a pretty good amount of reviews. They're not as well known. King of Fighters 14 got 66 reviews. And I don't think you're going to see a substantially lower amount than the last game. But
yeah, that's the big question mark around that one for me was just, sometimes those niche games that are kind of like in their genre and not much else, even if you only got 5 reviews from like hardcore fighting game critics,
right.
It could be the best thing because they'll know that it's good.
Yeah, they'll be like, 90, it's a great fighting game.
Exactly.
And then you'll get the inflated score.
Well, and King of Fighters has that pedigree and everything as well.
Yes, it does. I mean, this is a 15th game. And I think this is a very safe game. This is a game, like, in terms of, like, you're talking about the enthusiast. Everybody seems pretty interested in this game. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, even if it gets lower reviews with, like, IGN or whatever, there's going to be the niche reviewers who are going to perhaps give it higher scores as well.
Totally.
Yeah. And another thing, this is another game, solid release date, releasing early in the year.
True. That's your first one releasing, I think. Yeah. Oh, no, you've got another one in January.
No, it's second.
Yeah, it's second one.
Because I got Luminous Avenger.
Cool. Well, another game I don't know much about is DNF
Yeah,
Duel.
although I forget if it was you or someone else who was talking about its beta.
I heard that it had a whole lot of controversy surrounding its beta, and the developers had to, like, issue an apology and all this kind of stuff.
I hadn't seen much about the beta, but maybe I just missed it. I did see a lot of people thought the gameplay was really good, which is something I'm going to look to because it's using rollback netcode. Guilty Gear Strive didn't have the best online, but it still worked out. And Arc System Works has been putting out a lot of games that have been reviewing quite well as a thing, too.
Yeah, they're a good developer to back, I think.
They were used to be a lot more niche back when they only had, like, Blaze Blue.
Yeah.
But, like, Guilty Gear XRD, Dragon Ball Fighters especially, really helped them on the map, and then we saw Guilty Gear Strive. The game looks good.
Yeah.
One thing to consider is that, and I don't know if everybody realized this, is that this is actually part of a larger franchise with Dungeon Fighter Online. It's not a standalone game.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And I could see with, I don't really know how many Japanese critics OpenCritic uses. I'm going to bet not many, if any.
Yeah, I'd say it's mostly Western.
Yeah.
But
This game could not quite do as high, but the gameplay looks very crisp. It's graphically extremely impressive. I don't know if you've seen the trailer or anything, or if
I've seen bits and pieces, and,
I'm thinking, my thought process is that I think it will score similar to Grand Blue Fantasy, which was another Arc System fighting game based on a popular existing Japanese franchise, but wasn't Dragon Ball, because Dragon Ball is bigger than anything on here.
Yeah. Well, I think Dragon Ball was an anomaly anyway, just from, the IP.
Like, Grand Blue Fantasy actually got some review issues because the online was bad.
Yeah.
But DNF Duel is using rollback like Guilty Gear Strive is.
I've heard lots of good stuff about rollback netcode being like the future for all fighting games.
It's probably going to become standard at some point, unless you're a Nintendo property. This is another game I figure there's a very high likelihood it will score around 78.
Yep, no, fair enough.
I think it's very solid review. They have shown gameplay of all the characters. They have full trailers. They've had multiple demos, so on and so forth. So it's a pretty safe pick, despite being my one game that I drafted, at least. I didn't have a solid release date.
Yeah, well, and moving on to your first game that's going to get released, which is Gunvolt Chronicles Luminous Avenger 9-2.
I think for some reason, I think despite the Roman numerals, it's Ix.
Either way.
It's long, confusing name.
Yeah, it's one of those mouthfuls.
I forget, but I think someone said they had been hoping to draft this game when I took it.
Oh, okay. Because this one I'd never heard of before.
You heard of Mega Man Zero, right?
Yeah.
Well, Inti Creates developed all the Mega Man Zero games.
Oh, okay.
And then, Mega Man stopped existing.
Yeah.
Well, Azure Striker Gunvolt is basically their all-original answer for a Mega Man game.
Gotcha.
And Luminous Avenger is a spin-off involving the second playable character from Azure Striker Gunvolt.
Oh, okay.
The games in the past, they've all been pretty good. Inti Creates is a very, very consistent developer.
Okay.
I think out of their last games, the only one they've done that didn't get high 70s or something was Mighty Number 9. And I mean, it's Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, no, I've never played it, but I've heard all about the, the saga of everything.
But basically, Luminous Avenger, it's a very frantic, high score kinda, run and gun Mega Man style game.
Right.
All the games have been very well developed. Blaster Master Zero, which was their other recent ones, all reviewed well.
Yeah, right.
I would be shocked if this game didn't get either a 78 or close to it. Yeah, I think it's probably my safest pick on here, actually. Aside from Elden Ring.
That's true.
But Elden Ring barely counts because it's Elden Ring.
Yeah, I mean, to me, as someone who doesn't necessarily keep up with many of these types of games, your roster, in my view, is quite a lot of niche different titles as opposed to, like, which we'll get onto in a second, like Everdreads, which are like big blockbuster titles kind of thing.
Yes. Mine is definitely, like, Elden Ring is big, Stranger of Paradise is big, and then the rest are more niche. I would agree with that.
Yeah, like, I mean, they're still big. King of Fighters is still big, undoubtedly. But it's a little more niche. Like, fighting games in general are a little more niche.
Even within fighting games, if I was thinking of fighting games that were popular, I'd go Street Fighter, Super Smash Brothers, probably like Guilty Gear right now, because Guilty Gear Strive was so big.
Mortal
Kombat, Soul Calibur. King of Fighters is probably not in the top 5.
Yeah, as far as like big blockbusters.
Despite being a storied franchise.
Yeah.
Unless you're like in South America or something.
But yeah, going on to your counterpick, which is Dying Light 2 Stay Human.
Yeah.
And Jordan is the one who picked that.
That's right.
That one's an interesting one to me because Dying Light didn't do heaps well to begin with, but I feel like it's become really popular since release, like post-release.
It's become popular, but does that mean it would review better?
But I feel like there's a lot of hype for this new one, and critically even there's a lot of expectations about how good it might possibly be, which are all obviously caveats, but...
I actually have a lot of concern for this game, because I was looking at this game to see if I would pick it.
Yeah.
Is when I was first looking at it. But they released gameplay footage of it, right?
Yeah.
And when I looked at it, almost nobody was happy with it. Because they've changed almost all the things that made the first game eventually become liked.
Oh, okay.
Like, I read a lot of people, they're like, one of the scariest things in the first game is when it's at night.
Yeah.
Well, they're changed the entire, like, night system, according to the devs themselves.
Oh, okay. But that is a worry if they start trying to reinvent the wheel especially after achieving some kind of success.
Well, my thought is, like, let's say Dying Light 2, in theory, would review better because it was more liked over time, right?
Yeah.
Well, if they change all that stuff, then that kind of goes away because they're changing what made it get better with time to begin with, right?
Yeah. That is a bit of a worry.
And the first game only reviewed at a 74.
But that's what I mean. Like, it only reviewed at a 74, but I think if they re-reviewed it now, it would probably have a bit of a higher score.
I mean, with a counterpick, it's always a risk. Because like you said, like the DLC reviewed well, for example. I actually thought there were a lot of good counterpick options, but almost all of them were very risky. I think there's actually potential for a lot of strong points in the counterpicks, but just very risky ones.
Yeah. See, I kind of think differently with that. I think this year's really hard with counterpicks because a lot of them have the potential to just tank you completely, I think.
I think part of the reason this seems hard is because last year there were some easy slam dunk counterpicks.
Yeah. And a lot of them as well for, betting on it not releasing as well, as opposed to it being bad.
Yeah, that's true as well. But we had Balan Wonderworld, we had Werewolf the Apocalypse. Yeah. Those are kind of games everybody knew was kind of suck when they were picked. No offense to the people who picked them, but I don't think that people were surprised that Balan Wonderworld, at the time it was picked, turned out to be bad.
Yeah, it's that old thing, isn't it, of like maybe when you pick it seems like it's got potential, but then something drastically goes wrong along the way.
Yeah, I mean, like Chris Tales last year when I picked that, I thought that was my risky pick and it ended up being 73.
Yeah.
But I figure even if Dying Light 2 reviews better, it probably won't review super hardcore well, is my thought. Like, another thing that worries me is the marketing about this game. Seems like it's going in the direction of, like, the Ubisoft, look at all the content we have, rather than talking about how good the content is, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and it's a hard balance to get right, isn't it? Because even, Ubisoft with new Assassin's Creed games and that, it's impressive what they've done, but it's, is it all as good as it could be kind of thing? So they're opening themselves up.
Right, because there were multiple people who were saying the last Assassin's Creed had too much.
Well, I'm one of those people. It just went on too long.
Assassin's Creed at least has the bonus that it's part of the Assassin's Creed franchise.
True.
And we all know that being part of a good franchise gives you a bit of leeway when it comes to reviewers, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, interesting. That'll be a good one. That comes out February 4th, so we'll know about that soon enough.
That's right. Maybe I'll get fucked up with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I imagine that's enough about mine because we kind of talked about it. I'll just ask you, out of all just as a rough estimate, like how good would you say my draft is compared to the others? You think it was on the high end or low end or what?
I think it's very strong, and mostly for the same reasons you said. Like, you've got 4 out of 5 with the release date, which I think is super strong to begin with.
Yeah.
And yeah, looking at the pedigree of the stuff that you've got, I think, yes, it's more niche and stuff, but that's kind of good in a way because, to me, a King of Fighters game is going to score well unless they happen to do some weird stuff that no one's expecting. Or like, Elden Ring, there's enough From Software fanboys out there that it's going to score well no matter what.
Right. Elden Ring would just have to flop hard, like be on like Cyberpunk 2077 shit.
Exactly. Someone would have to pull some crap like that to really mess up that game.
I mean, I think Cyberpunk 2077 still on OpenCritic has good reviews too.
Well, because I think despite, I've played Cyberpunk and I loved it.
Well, actually, Cyberpunk only had a 76 in OpenCritic. You'd be very disappointed if you drafted that first round.
Yeah. Well, and rightfully so. Like, they shouldn't have gotten away with what they did. But
yeah.
And, I've played it and I loved the game as well. I thought it was great. But for all the technical difficulties and all that kind of thing, yeah, it did not deserve to.
Basically, as long as they don't Cyberpunk it, it's good.
Yeah, essentially. And that's the thing, like, who knows when something comes out, even if you think it's a surefire shot. Like, there could be some little thing that just gets in everyone's, gets
maybe Breath of the Wild 2 is the worst Legend of Zelda game somehow.
Who knows? Like, maybe everyone will say that it's starting to copy Genshin Impact or something.
Yo, where's Genshin Impact 2 over this shit?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, let's go to Everdread.
So yeah, Everdread to me is like, and I don't want this to sound like a slight at all because I think it's strong, but Everdread's picks, like last year, are very much like big blockbuster, these are going to blow your mind kind of picks.
Mainstream.
Yeah, and
they're very
I find mainstream has a bit of a bad connotation, so that's why I kind of try and avoid it.
Fair enough.
But these are big games with like big teams behind them.
Yeah.
And again, if they don't screw the pooch, they'll probably score really well because these are all big games.
I'd say a big thing just in his overall draft is there's a decent chance at least one of his games doesn't release.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway,
Horizon Forbidden West.
I think if this game came out and didn't review well, it would be a shock, right?
Oh, it would be surprising because they could basically just repeat what they did in the first one and get good reviews.
Like, this is another game like Elden Ring. The 4 on this is probably like an 85.
Yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. I don't have it because I don't have a PC that can run it right now, I don't think anyway, and I don't have a console aside from the Switch.
Yeah.
But I thought Horizon Zero Dawn looked like a very good game. I thought it seemed very interesting.
Yeah, well, the cool thing that I think sets it apart from other similar games like that is mostly the combat, because like hunting these big robots and enemies and things, you really have to think about what your loadout is and how you're going to approach it and all that kind of thing. And you can't just like run and gun so mindlessly. Like, you actually have to put in a bit of planning.
Yeah.
I think that's really what the strength is.
I'd say personally that in the story.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will be a popular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think a lot of open world games have issue with story. In part because open world is non-linear, so it's a bit more difficult. But Horizon Zero Dawn seemed like for a lot of people it hit out of the park with that.
Yeah.
This was the other main game I was considering picking aside from Elden Ring, so I'm pretty high on it.
Yeah, I think it would have been pretty high on everyone's list.
Yeah.
But, I think Everdread's definitely one to watch with this. His second game, Sinuous Sacrifice, the big question mark on that one for me is it going to release?
Yeah. I mean, you'll remember last year, this was my counterpick.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely a big question if it'll release.
I mean,
I will also personally say I had a bit of trepidation towards this game last year.
Okay.
On if it would be good. The last trailer, I think it was a trailer, I forget if there was gameplay, that they put out kind of made me feel better about it because it looks good. But the first Hellblade, in my opinion, felt like it kind of came out of nowhere for Ninja Theory in a way.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Ninja Theory before had games that critically reviewed well but weren't as liked by fans, right?
Yeah.
Your DMCs and Heavily Blades. But Hellblade hit both. But one thing I noticed popped up as the game was out more is more people became critical whether this is right or wrong, I'm not going to necessarily debate that, about how it was handling the mental health aspect of it.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of like treading on eggshells either way. Like if you do try to deal with something sensitive like mental health issues, you're always going to piss someone off, I think.
I wonder if the second game is going to mess it up and therefore get lower reviews because of it. It's something I was thinking for a while.
Right.
Especially because that's become a larger topic nowadays, right? Compared to even not too long ago. So that was last year one of the things I was thinking about.
Mm.
But this year, after they put out their last trailer, it looked really good, so I was way too afraid to counterpick it.
Well, and I think, the first one at the end of the day did get very well received.
84. You got an 84.
Yeah, so...
It got very good.
And I do have faith in Ninja Theory.
Yeah.
They're another developer that I kind of guarantee... I almost always expect goodness from them.
They're considered pretty good devs. So I would definitely imagine if that game comes out, it'll probably score at least an 80, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like the low end is probably like an 80, and then the high end is probably like high 80s. That's like probably the range of that game. And there's another thing about games that might not release this year that's interesting. With the second counterpick, as the year goes on, if it looks like a game won't release, you can intentionally counterpick that game so they can't drop it.
Absolutely.
And you're basically taking away whatever potential points they could have from replacement.
Yeah, I mean, that is a strategy you can use because that essentially, it gives you a 0 score, but it also gives them a 0 score. So you're guaranteeing that you're not going to lose points, but they're not going to be able to gain anything. So
yeah, and the counter pick is usually probably going to be the least valuable slot, right? Because it's the one that you're more likely to lose points on compared to everything else.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
taking the 0 on your counter pick for the 0 on their second round draft pick is probably a win, right?
Well, yeah, and especially considering if you don't pick a counter pick, you're going to lose 15 points automatically if you don't fill that spot. So if you've managed to fill it with something that's 0, you're automatically saving yourself 15 points. So
yeah, exactly. Also, on that note, people this year really have to pay attention if their game gets delayed. Because otherwise, if they don't drop it that week, someone will counterpick it, and then you won't be able to drop it.
That's definitely a good tip to pay attention to, I'd say.
Yeah.
What about Forza Motorsport Xbox Series X Edition?
I think this game is basically, if it comes out, it's going to do well, right? Forza games pretty much always review well. I'm not sure this game's going to come out, though, honestly.
Well, and that's the thing. To me, it's kind of a bit like Gran Turismo. Like, they don't seem to have a solid schedule for when to release, but just whenever they're ready.
I feel like it's easy to perceive Forza as like a yearly series, but it hasn't been.
Oh no, not at all.
Not recently.
That's what I mean, though. Like Forza Motorsport is just not as regular even as some other racing games and that kind of thing. But when it does release, it's pretty well received. So I think the big question mark on that one is probably just the release date.
But Phil Spencer last year said the game was only in early development. So in a pandemic, do we think Forza Motorsport went from early development to done in like 1 or 2 years?
I'd say it's possible.
It's possible, but to me, this is like the high risk, high reward pick of Everdreads. Like everybody has those games, right? That are like high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
If Forza comes out, it can hit a 90 on a third rounder, and that's very, very good. If it doesn't come out, though, it's
totally.
Everdread's got that high risk, high reward on a lot of these because I think all of his first 3 picks could hit like 90.
Yeah.
And that would be like 60 points in 3 rounds, which is insane.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room there for some big scores.
And then he went with Windjammers 2 next.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, I thought, because I kind of thought about that for myself, but ended up going against it just... I'm not really sure why. I think I just found something that I thought was better.
Oh, on that round, it was the 4th round. You picked Replaced, which I could see thinking would go better,
Yeah. But I think, Windjammers is a popular franchise.
Yeah. Like, funny thing is, until he picked it, I had not heard of Windjammers, honestly.
Oh, okay.
So there's one of my blind spots. But when I looked it up, Emu makes this game.
Yeah.
This is a very good pick. It's like a solid floor glue pick. This game's probably going to get at least a 78. And it's going to come out. It's got January 20th release date.
Yep.
This kind of helps hedge against the risk of his other picks.
Yeah, and Windjammers is definitely one of those games that I think gets received well. If not, stellar, at least very well.
I mean, the Windjammers that is on the Open Critic got 78.
Yeah.
And you're going to be happy with the 78 every time, right?
Yeah. What about Shadow Warrior 3?
If you remember, this is another game I considered counterpicking.
Oh, really?
Yes. But I decided against it because when I looked it up, OpenCritic had a bit higher scores on the series than Metacritic, which is what I was looking at first.
Oh, okay, I see.
I don't know. The Shadow Warrior games definitely have fans, but critically, it has been a bit more mixed. I mean, 76, 77.
Yeah.
But those are still solid for a fifth round pick. If you can get 77, you're going to be happy.
Yeah, totally.
I do think if that game flopped, it wouldn't surprise me as a pick, but there's a pretty good chance it just ends up with basically the same score as the other two.
Yeah, I reckon it'll probably get like mid to high 70s.
For your fifth round pick, if you can get a 75 to 78, you'll take that.
Totally.
The counter pick for Everdread is pretty interesting.
Why do you say that? Because, of course, it's Card Shark, which Dragon H89 picked.
Well, you were talking about niche games, for example. I think you would agree the idea and art style of this game is very different from the very mainstream picks of everything else Everdread has, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is hardcore, indie game, unique kind of thing. I'm not really sure. Like, Card Shark is a game I could see being a good game, but not reviewing well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's kind of...
And it might not release, too.
Yeah. I can see people really enjoying it.
Like, this is a game, I think there's a good chance it has, like, a really hardcore fan base. I'm not sure how much of a widespread fan base.
Yeah.
Plus, there's pretty good questions on if this game will actually come out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the art now, and it looks great.
Yeah. I mean, this looks like a game that would interest me a lot.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not like the big mainstream kind of games.
Yeah, that could be a pretty good counterpick. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's one of the interesting ones. I would say Everdread as one of the riskier overall drafts, but if he hits, he could have the best draft.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, I think he's following a similar path that he did last year.
Yeah.
Where he's got those big names that if they come out will probably give him some good points.
Right.
But we might not find out about them until like much later in the year. So
yeah,
it is risky in that sense.
Well, he does have the plus side that Horizon Forbidden West comes out early. So he's going to know about at least one of them.
Yeah. Well, and Windjammers is on the 20th of January. So.
Well, yeah, but that's not one of the like big three giant ones of his list.
We'll hold you to that.
Can you imagine Windjammers 2 scores like 90? Then Everdread would be potential like driver's seat, really.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, Matt.
Yeah, let's look at Matt with Toys for Rodney, which is one of my favorite names of the year.
I like it too. I also say he has one of the most interesting drafts in the entire draft.
Yeah. Well, Matt came 11th last year.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the greatest.
No.
But hopefully he can do better this time.
Yeah. I mean, last year he got kind of messed up by double unreleases, or triple unreleases, actually.
Yeah.
He picked really bizarrely last year, I thought.
That sounds about right.
Although last year he just got really fucked by Neo, The World Ends With You actually coming out.
Yeah. So this year he started off with Forspoken.
Yeah, which is very interesting. This is I don't know, but I would not have picked Forspoken in the first round.
Yeah, it's interesting when you put it in the context of a first round pick, isn't it? Because
right.
You know, this is the strong one you want that is going to like hold you down.
Like, is there really a world where you want to pick this game over, I don't know, Bayonetta 3, Gran Turismo 7, to use games that have like release dates? Because for ones that don't have release dates, maybe you're worried they don't come out, for example.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Forspoken looks really good, not going to lie.
It does, but this is a game I'm pretty worried about. I would say I'm very worried about even.
Yeah, see, I don't know. It looks cool to me.
It looks cool, but these guys, the only game they have ever done is Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah.
And they only did support work.
See, that doesn't worry me so much because I feel like, well, that can go wildly either way. If people haven't done heaps of games, well, that doesn't mean they're going to be bad necessarily.
No, it doesn't. But like I said, for my drafts, I really value like consistency. So I like to try to pick things that I have an idea of how they'll kind of happen. You know?
Yeah. I have a feeling that Matt will probably have a different philosophy.
Almost certainly, given his picks. But also, this game has like it really doesn't have anything known about it for the most part, and it's been in development a while.
I don't know. It's got a whole wiki page.
It's got a wiki page. We'll look at what's on the wiki page.
I don't know. It looks really good to me. I'm like excited for it to come out. But
I mean, this shit looks like the kind of stuff I'd love to play.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean I'm sure that's going to be reviewing well and good or come out. I mean, it's going to probably come out because it has a release date, unlike the other one. So that's definitely one thing I like about the pick, is it has a release date. But let's think about it like this. Let's say it's just as good as Final Fantasy 15. Isn't 81 points a bit low from having the third first-round pick?
Maybe it's just more of a solid pick than a high-scoring pick.
That's true.
Plus, it feels as flex slot as well, so maybe that was considering...
That's true. It does fill the flex slot, which is good.
So that's, I feel like that kind of influences some people's picks here and there.
Definitely. I mean, it influenced my pick.
So, I'm way more excited for Forspoken than I am for Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Really?
Which is Matt's second
Interesting.
pick. I'm not a Nintendo guy.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's just me.
One thing that's interesting about this game is this is the game I said I actually got a bit worried about when I was originally going to pick it.
Yeah.
Because some friends pointed out something to me. Like, everybody's really excited this is like open world Kirby and stuff, right? They haven't said it's open world.
Okay.
That's just an assumption everyone's been making. But this could be like more of a 3D world style platformer, for example.
I don't really follow Nintendo stuff anyway. So, because I'm just not interested and I don't have a Nintendo system. So, first party stuff like that kind of goes over my head a lot of the time. So, I haven't heard about the open worldness or anything like that. It's just a new Kirby game in my book.
And one thing that's interesting is something that could work for this game is Kirby Star Allies was like a fun game.
Yeah.
But a lot of people felt it was very stale because they've been using that formula since the Wii.
Okay.
So just the fact it's different, 3D, could give it a review bump because fresh air for the series, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and as a outsider to Nintendo first party stuff, really, I feel like Nintendo first party stuff does do quite well regardless.
Yeah.
Just because they're very popular and they get, they're competent as well. Like, I'm not dissing Nintendo at all.
Right.
They make good games.
Right.
Both critically and popularity-wise, for want of a better word.
Right. I mean, like you can see, a lot of the Kirby games, they have scores in like the 80s.
Yeah, so I feel like a new Kirby game is just by default kind of a pretty solid pick.
Right. And this is one that has hype behind it for sure.
Yeah.
I feel. I would say it's definitely a good pick.
But it's kind of like, even if a Nintendo game does badly, it's probably still going to do okay as far as scores go.
Well, I mean, the last Kirby game only got a 74, consider.
That's still not bad, though, in my book.
For a second-round pick, that's bad.
Yeah.
Second-round pick, I'd say are hopefully hitting at least around an 80.
Right, okay.
Like, if you get a bit under, that's fine. But, these are like the first two picks are like the premium choices, right?
Well, it's interesting hearing you talk about it this way because it's new, that sort of thing is new to me because that's obviously coming from your experience with fantasy football and that kind of thing.
Right.
About draft order and when to pick what and things is something I don't necessarily consider very much.
Right.
I get it makes sense. But yeah, it's interesting considering it from that angle.
Because there's some games you can always just pick later. Like Freedom Planet 2, if it comes out, will probably score at least at 80, but I wouldn't draft it because it's too risky and I know it will be available after the draft. Nobody's picking it.
Yeah.
So even if I think it'll get an 80, it would be bad to pick it early.
Yep. Well, let's move on to Moss Book 2, the sequel to Moss.
This is a game I really don't know much about, honestly.
My biggest question mark around it is just it's a VR game. And I know the first game was well received and, again, critically well received.
Right.
That's, I guess, in the VR niche of things, which can work for it in a lot of ways.
Had 74 people review it. There's enough, like all the major places are going to look at VR no matter what, right?
Well, kind of. I find they do, but it's not like it's still not a huge thing. Like, I feel like there's more hype around VR than there is actual VR, just in general.
I know, but I'm more meant like, your IGNs, your Game Informers, your Polygons, all the review places are going to look at it at least.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a strong pick either way because, like, the previous game, that got like an 86, yeah?
86, yeah. I would say it's a very good third-round pick.
That's big points. But that's where I feel like being a VR game, if it's as competent as the previous game, it'll be very well received because...
Yeah, I agree.
In the VR world, something that is really good and competent and stays that way will get rewarded for that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, something that I have to say, even though it makes me want to spit it out on my tongue when I do, is that like Facebook and people are pushing VR more right now. So that could get a bump.
Yeah.
The industry is kind of pushing it right now.
Yeah, but they've been pushing it for years.
They've been pushing it for years, but I mean, you could say, be like, Moss was the first VR push, now we got Moss 2.
Yeah.
It's continuing to show the great VR boom.
I think it'll do well regardless, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good pick.
I agree.
And it's one that I hadn't really thought about either, so...
It doesn't have a solid release date, but it's estimated to be spring 2022. That gives you a good time in case it gets delayed.
Yeah.
I think Rocksmith Plus is very similar to Moss in a lot of ways.
I agree. The only thing that worries me about Rocksmith Plus is the estimated 2022 sometime.
That's not the only thing that worries about me, but yes, it definitely might not come out. I actually do wonder if this game's going to flop. I know that sounds weird. Nobody agreed with me, but I really do wonder that.
Well, and I think this is a good one for, I think it'll critically do really well, but maybe it won't be as popular because it is very niche.
One of the things they're doing is they're moving to a very interesting subscription model. I heard a lot of people saying that from what they saw of the content that was on it, they'd rather just stay with Rocksmith 2014 right now. I mean, something like Rocksmith, you really only pick it up if it's going to give you more of the learning kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, you do it because it's a good way to learn how to play guitar.
Right.
But that's what I mean, like, because it's not like a rhythm game or anything, it's not like a traditional quote-unquote game,
right?
Even though it is, gamifying the whole process. I just think because of how well it's been received, and because if you are perhaps into that sort of thing,
right,
you'll probably be more likely to be okay with the subscription model, that kind of thing. I see it kind of like, I don't know if you know iRacing.
I know only a little about it, but I do.
So iRacing is like the hardcore racing simulator game that the dudes who have like $10,000 racing rig setups play.
Right.
And it's subscription based. Costs a lot of money, but they invest in it because they love doing it. To me, Rocksmith is kind of like the equivalent of that, where if you're into it, you're going to just get into it regardless. And it should be a good quality product because of the previous, pedigree.
I think this is actually a fairly solid pick, despite my trepidation.
Yeah.
Because if it maintains the quality of the previous games, it's going to be like an 80 plus in the fourth round. And that's pretty good.
Totally.
Like in the late rounds, you're either looking for the niche products that are kind of going under the radar or the ones that have some risk. One of the things that's really weird about Matt's draft is I could see his first two picks scoring less than his third and fourth pick. And that would be very weird, but interesting.
But I would hazard a guess that knowing Matt and what he's like, it might have just been because he preferred Forspoken.
I mean, I'm guessing you just picked a lot of the games he liked, judging from this and last year. And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously.
His last pick, of course, is Planet of Lana.
Yeah.
Which, again, only has an estimated 2022
That
date.
is the worry with this game, I think. This is another one.
Yeah.
Will it come out?
But it is very much a little indie project.
It's an indie project. The trailer didn't really show gameplay much, and I don't mean that in the sense the gameplay will be bad, but you wonder how far along it is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And this is their first game, too.
Yeah, and that's what, it looks beautiful, and hopefully it can match its aesthetic with a story and gameplay as well, but...
I mean, we really don't know how good any of it will be. We don't really have much info, do we?
No, I don't. It looks like they're trying to push it as kind of a bit of a kind of story-heavy adventure kind of game.
Well, apparently according to their website and their publisher, it's a puzzle adventure.
Yeah, but I don't know heaps about it anyway.
This is one of those games I definitely think there's a good chance it doesn't come out this year.
Yeah, that could be a possibility.
And the counterpick of Matt would be very interesting, considering who it's a counterpick of. So we'll let you start this one off.
Well, this is a game that definitely may not come out this year.
Yeah.
Called Storyteller. I think if it does come out, it's going to go gangbusters.
You think it's going to be one that this is the one that's been in development for like a decade, right?
It's been around for a long time, yeah. And they've released a demo, I think, last year. So, it's looking more and more complete in that sense, I guess. Plus, it's an Annapurna Interactive game, which, in my view, they can do no wrong.
I mean, 12 minutes.
Well, okay. Other than that, they can do no wrong. Well, their thing, like kind of like how Devolver has a style of game that it puts out. Like Annapurna always has that kind of little bit artsy, a little bit weird, very kind of narrative heavy.
Yeah, they got that. If you know movie studios, they got like A24, I think it is. They kind of got vibes that remind me of that.
And I just think everything I know about Storyteller, I personally think it's going to be really good. But yeah, the big question mark is if it's coming out or not.
I honestly can't say much about this game because I really don't know anything about it.
I'd say it's a fair counterpick because of I got counterpicked the most, I think, out of everyone. And of all the ones that got counterpicked, I think this is the best counterpick.
Yeah.
For my draft, anyway.
Yeah. Matt's draft is very interesting.
I like that it doesn't make that much sense to you.
It really, I mean, you talked about my fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff in fantasy football would be one of the worst drafts because it doesn't work with that. But the ways that Fantasy Critic League is different means it could work out.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is going to depend a lot on how well Moss and Rocksmith do.
Yeah. Well, and I think they will do well if and when they come out.
Like, look at the first round picks before him, Elden Ring, Horizon Forbidden West. And then look at the three after, God of War, Ragnarok, Uncharted, Bayonetta 3.
Yeah.
Let's assume all the first round picks they'll come out. I think it's pretty likely Forspoken has notably less points than all of those, right?
Well, I think less guaranteed.
I mean,
I still think it looks like it'll do well.
yeah, but do you think it'll review? How likely do you think it is that reviews as well as Elden Ring or Horizon Forbidden West or God of War Ragnarok or Bayonetta 3?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't know.
I think
Have to wait and see.
I think it's unlikely it does as well. I could be wrong. I'm not.
I know what you mean though. There's much less guarantee about it. It's the least safe pick of that group.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Cafrel's next, and Cafrel has been around since 2020, and they came second in 2020
and sixth in 2021. Their draft last year, if I recall, wasn't bad. It just kind of got a bit unlucky with that. Like, okay, let me rephrase it. Well, that wasn't bad. It's that they picked Balan Wonderworld, and then everything else did well.
Yeah, and I think they had a few games that didn't come out and that sort of thing, and
yeah. But if they hadn't picked Balan Wonderworld, they would have gotten a clean second or third. Sorry.
Yeah.
God of War Ragnarok.
I reckon that's a lock.
The only question is if it comes out. I think it probably will, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will. They've already started like marketing it and everything, and
if it comes out, I mean,
the game pages
God
are
of War 2018, I think it was 2019. I forget what year that last one came out. God 94.
Yeah.
God of War is generally reviewed well. Santa Monica studio game. I'm not really sure there's much to say about this game, honestly.
Yeah, but the previous one was just so well done,
right?
That like it deserves that 94, if not more.
I haven't played it, but it's one of the games I wish I could play.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you ever get the system, it's a must play.
If that game comes out, it's going to score well.
Yeah, that's what I think. If Ragnarok releases on time, which should be this year, then if it's more of the same and it just continues from the last game, it'll be fine. Nothing to worry about.
And I mean, the last game literally ended with the sequel hook for this game. So.
Yeah. Similarly, like Pokemon, I'm not too familiar with Pokemon.
This is really interesting.
It seems like a pretty guaranteed popularity thing.
Here's the thing. Pokemon's reviews have gone down every generation for about 4 or 5 games now.
Oh, okay.
Like, at least of the mainstream ones. Pokemon Sun and Moon had 87, then Ultra Sun and Moon went down, and Let's Go went down, and Sword and Shield went down. I didn't count the remakes, but the remakes also had worse than Sword and Shield.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of various issues some people have with the latest games. So the really interesting thing about this game is that it seems like it's being very different from like every other main Pokemon game being released. Like all the other ones, they're traditional RPGs, right? Go around, get the badges. This is an open world game.
Okay, well that could be
Or
interesting.
semi-open world of some kind, where you sneak up on Pokemon and the battles happen in the real field and all that stuff. Shaking up the formula would be very likely to help get a score, but at the same time, this game is not running well on Switch in all the footage we've seen. I'm telling you right now.
That's a worry, because that's pretty much where it's going to be.
It is where it's going to be. It is not running well. This is their first time doing an open world game.
Yeah.
You can't be upset with this pick, because Pokemon, like you said, I mean, all of these got 80 or more. This is a game. This is a lot like Strangers of Paradise. This could get a bad negative review, or it could get really good.
And if they're changing it up, then they might freak everyone out or not do it well enough or something.
Yeah, exactly. Because part of the reason all the other Pokemon games do well, they've really got that formula down for the most part pretty well.
Yeah.
But they're moving out of the formula, so that kind of hurts the solidity of it.
But, maybe they could pull like a Yakuza, like a dragon or something, and
exactly,
everyone will love the difference.
I mean, people are really excited for this.
But yeah, I think it's a strong pick either way. it's obviously it's a little bit risky, but it's for a Pokemon game, you're pretty much it's not going to tank. You'd expect.
Saffron, one thing with his, he had one of the riskiest drafts, I would say.
Yeah.
Only Pokemon Legends has a technical release date, although God of War Ragnarok, I imagine, will be. And 2 of the games haven't even been announced.
I'd be surprised if Ragnarok got pushed.
Yeah.
His next game, new Fire Emblem game, unannounced, is the only unannounced game that took up a flex spot, which is interesting enough. Everyone else had a new gaming franchise.
That's true. Although, I have to say, I think this may be the wrong Fire Emblem pick.
Okay. Why do you say that?
So, I don't know if you saw, but Fantasy Critic League, there's 2 unannounced Fire Emblem games that you can pick.
Oh, okay.
There's new Fire Emblem game, and there's Fire Emblem game remake.
Yes.
And a lot of the rumors are that the remake is going to be what's come out this year of Genealogy of the Holy War. Because the team that worked on Three Houses, they finished Three Houses a while ago. They're presumably working on the next game. But the other team is the team that worked on the last remake, which was Shadows of Valencia, and they haven't released a game recently. And this year is Genealogy of the Holy War's anniversary, too.
So chances are this might not want to compete with other stuff.
Well, my worry is that new Fire Emblem game won't come out. Fire Emblem game remake will come out, and then he would lose the spot because they're separate on Fantasy Critic League.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about an unannounced game. I think it's just banking on something coming up and for the franchise to be popular, I suppose.
Pretty much. I mean, it's Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
If it comes out, it'll score well, unless something really crazy happens. But this is one of the games I'm most uncertain will come out. I was surprised nobody counterpicked it.
Yeah.
And then after that, we have, I thought, one of the coolest picks is Kerbal Space Program 2.
Yeah, see, this one worries me for coming out.
It does.
quite a lot.
Quite a lot. I agree. But I just thought it was interesting because this was a game I didn't think about.
Okay.
And then when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, if this comes out, this is going to do good.
Yeah, see, I had this on my watch list, but because I think if it does come out, it'll do well. Because the first one was very well respected and very well received.
I mean, they don't even have a date on it. They just
it will happen eventually, but it's that kind of game where it's been happening eventually for so long, but kind of like Storyteller in a way, I suppose. But there hasn't been any kind of step forward.
I mean, I guess you could think it's been 7 years, so they've probably got to have something, right?
Yeah. Oh, and they probably do. That's what I mean. And if it does come out, it'll no doubt do well. So I think it's a good pick, providing it does come out.
Right. It's been pushed back over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then the other one he picked was another game that doesn't even have a title, which is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order sequel.
That's an interesting one because that's a big gamble, I would say.
It is. I would say it's interesting because when he picked this, a lot of the leaks were saying this game won't come out this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect this to come out this year.
If it comes out, it'll probably be good. I am slightly worried because, I don't know, Jedi Fallen Order seemed like it was popular, but the gameplay was considered a bit basic. And Star Wars as a brand has obviously taken a hit the past few years, I would say.
But, an 83 for Fallen Order is...
Yeah, it's good.
Solid. And again, like you say, this is a final pick in the draft, so...
Compared to some of the other ones, this is a lot riskier because there's a good chance this doesn't come out.
Yeah.
Not much else to say.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say, I think his counter could work out quite well. Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster.
See, here's the thing. At first, I was actually thinking the same thing. I actually was considering this game for a counter pick before he picked it. Then I looked at what all the other Pixel remasters have got. 78, 75, 78, 83, 83. Do you really think that the Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster is randomly going to do a lot worse for no reason?
I think it's one of those games where it gets confusing because the public reception or the social media reception is a little bit different to the critical reception.
I agree.
Because you hear all the complaints, but yeah.
I mean, I think the key thing is a lot of things the fans complain about aren't going to be things that the reviewers complain about, right?
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VI is extremely popular. I actually think this counter pick is going to backfire.
Okay. That'll be interesting to see.
I'm going to say I'm even confident in it.
Ooh. Them's fighting words.
And I say that as someone who originally was going to pick it as a consideration.
Well, and it is estimated to come out in February, so we might find out soon if that is going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
I would say Sephiroth, I think, actually had one of the weaker drafts, but there is a lot of potential.
I think it's quite risky in a lot of ways. There's more risk for things not to come out, I think, in that group.
I think him and I believe Rick had some of the riskiest drafts.
All right. Well, let's move on to me.
We get to hear about your process. You've gotten third both years.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Clearly,
I'm just the number 3 guy. So, as far as process goes, I don't really have a process. I just I do a little bit of research, but nothing too hardcore, and just kind of go with things that I like to pick things that I'm also interested in, but that I think will do well critically. So, most of my picks are games that I like or I'm looking forward to that I also think will do well critically.
Right.
I did have other games like, the Mario and Rabbids game and stuff. That was on my watch list, but I didn't end up picking it because I'm not actually that interested. But I do think it would do really well critically. So
Right. It's a tear between the enjoyment of picking what you like versus the knowledge of what you know will do well.
And that's the thing, I don't get too deep into the research and that kind of thing, which I know is probably to my detriment, but that's how I enjoy myself anyway. So,
hey, as long as you're enjoying yourself.
Well, we're going to see, because apparently with all my counters, I might be really hating life. So,
I mean, Uncharted is a very good first pick.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most guaranteed pick on my whole roster so far.
I think there's no doubt about that.
An Uncharted remake or whatever it is.
I think it's just I guess it's technically a remake, but it's basically just a remaster collection as far as I know.
Yeah.
I mean, both the games that are in it did well. I can't imagine they're going to really fuck it up much.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
Has Uncharted ever had a main game that reviewed badly?
I don't think so. The one that I'm really excited for is Ghostwire Tokyo, because I think I've drafted this for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But it's kept getting delayed.
Do you think it's going to actually come out, though?
I think it's about time. And I think it's going to be awesome when it does, because it looks just phenomenal to me, to my eyes.
I remember seeing this game when it came out on E3, and I was like, whoa, this seems really cool.
Yeah, it just... I don't know, there's something about it that just kind of sucked me in big time. And to me, it looks like one of those games that's like, it's a new franchise, but it's going to come out and everyone's going to be like, oh my God, this is the hot shit for right now. And
I mean, Shinji Mikami's involved, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. They've got some pedigree in there.
Right.
And yes, yeah, it might not do so well, who knows? Because it's hard to say with new franchises, though. There's not really much to compare it to.
At first, I was a bit worried in that it's supposed to be an action-adventure game when, Shinji Mikami's more known for his horror games and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But they brought in
but it has the
person who did Doom.
Yeah, well, and Ghostwire looks like it has a strong kind of horror element to it. So
yeah,
I feel.
Well, but they said it's more action adventure.
Yeah. But I feel like that could be a good combination. If it was Doom action with Shinji Mikami horror,
Doom action, Shinji Mikami horror, good soundtrack. I mean, I think if this game comes out, it'll do well. This is a game I'm pretty excited for. I do wonder if it will actually come out.
No, absolutely. There's a good possibility it won't.
Which is why I got counterpicked. But I will say, if it comes out, Tommy is going to be very sad, I think.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of like drinking the Kool-Aid for Ghostwire Tokyo, but I kind of feel like if it comes out, it's going to be just great.
I mean, there is some worry that the only 2 games by the studio actually didn't review that well. I think it's worth noting.
Yeah.
But this game has more hype behind it.
Evil Within 2 got an 80, which I think is pretty strong.
80's fine. 80's definitely... If you get an 80 with your second pick, that's good.
Well, and that's where, a lot of my picks are very much games I get excited about, which I know is not necessarily the smartest thing to do, but...
I mean, and on the plus side, it hits your flex slot.
Yeah, exactly. But I was going to pick Ghostwire Tokyo no matter what.
Yeah. Unless someone else picked it.
That was the one I was crossing my fingers no one else would even touch it, because I wanted to grab something solid for the first pick in an Uncharted, or, something else like a Horizon or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and I knew I'd get Ghostwire Tokyo if it was available, and then the rest were just stuff I thought was cool.
Yeah, that's solid.
Redfall, to me, looks freaking awesome, and it's Arcane Studios, who I like.
I really don't know or have too much hype for Redfall, but like aside from the one Wolfenstein game, everything Arcane has done has reviewed well.
Yeah, like to me, they're a solid developer.
They have a very strong pedigree right now. There is a pretty big question if this game will come out.
Yeah, again, it's another one that I think perhaps Ashgazer counterpicked it because they're thinking it might not come out. Because I do think it would do quite well. Like,
yes,
this is the studio that did like Deathloop and Prey and Dishonored.
Aside from Wolfenstein, the 3 games they released on OpenCritic last did 88, 81, 87.
Yeah, so I think it'll be cool if it comes out. But yes, there's that question mark of whether it comes out or not.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big worries for you or Draft is that everybody's betting on your games not coming out. So if they don't come out, you can't drop them.
Yeah. Oh, and that's fine.
And if they do come out, you actually have a chance to do better than most everyone else because they counterpicked them. So you're taking points away from them as well.
Exactly. This is my plan.
It's like if Redfall comes out, it's probably going to get like an 80 plus, I imagine.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, and that's what I think. Like, I obviously am confident in the ones that I picked. I think they'll all do well if they come out. So, but yeah, the big question is a lot of them have like estimated release dates. So, yeah, we don't really know.
I mean, another thing is like replace some storyteller. Obviously, the people haven't released previous games, so you could argue it's more risky even if you believe in them.
Yeah.
But Redfall, like if it comes out, the pedigree basically says it's likely to do good.
Yeah. Well, the thing that hooked me on Replaced was I just recently have played a couple of games called Backbone and The Longest Road on Earth.
Yeah.
And they're both like this kind of side-scrolly pixel art adventure kind of storytelling game.
Right.
And to me, it looks like Replaced is another one in that kind of style, for want of a better word.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, again, it's one that looks really cool to me, and I hope that it does well.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it really looks like it has the potential to as well.
This is the kind of game that has like a few red flags for me. But also, this game is entirely my shit. I do hope it does well. Like, I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
I did worry that the announcement trailer, the gameplay it showed seemed pretty basic. I generally just worry about that stuff because when it comes to trailers, very few games have bad pre-rendered trailers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When you can just make something up. So the gameplay is kind of where you see more of an idea of how it might actually work. But the aesthetic is strong.
Well, and that's where, to me, it reminds me a bit of like Backbone, which came out last. Or they both came out last year, Backbone and Longest Road on Earth. And those games didn't have like heaps of gameplay. They were basically just walking around adventure games. And the strength for them was the storytelling and the art.
I mean, the thing with that, though, is like Backbone didn't necessarily review well, though.
Yeah, but I feel like a game like this could do really well.
Like Backbone got 71, for example.
Yeah, but I think it could have done better. And I feel like this could do better. But that's what I mean. Like my draft strategy is very much whatever my vibe is, not really diving too deep into research.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Then there's Storyteller.
Yeah, and Storyteller's the same thing. Like I've had it on my radar for ages.
Yeah.
And I reckon if it does come out, it'll be cool. And because of the demo last year and being well received and everything, I thought, it's probably about time it's going to come out. So hopefully.
I mean, if it does come out, that's another one where you could do a huge swing in points and really mess someone up too.
Well, and just on the fact that it's got an estimated date as well, like, and as well with Replaced, like them being small indie games, it's not rare for like those sorts of games to only announce like a week before. Oh, we're coming out now.
That's true. They're much more likely to just announce immediately.
Yeah, because they don't have the big marketing machine where they've got to run ads and everything for 6 months before they sell it.
Right. I mean, a lot of times they'll piggyback onto some event too.
Totally. And that's why it doesn't really worry me too much. Like I could see like at E3, like every single indie showcase has Storyteller with a release date or something,
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I feel you.
But they still might not come out, but either way.
Right. Like something to consider this is that when it comes to marketing, Replace is an Xbox exclusive. So Xbox has incentive to push it.
Absolutely.
And kind of give it some look.
So yeah, and then my counterpick was Victoria 3.
I want to hear your thoughts on why you picked this.
I thought about this one a lot. Mostly because, it's a grand strategy. It's probably going to do decently like most other like Crusader Kings and Imperative Rome, all that kind of stuff. But it's been in development for so long. and I really don't know if it's coming out, and I don't know if it's going to live up to the hype if it does come out, because Victoria is kind of like a sub-series as well of the big popular ones. And I kind of feel like it's going to have to do something really special to get up there. Otherwise, it could get pretty middling kind of scores and be a bit, it'll be loved by the people who want to play it. But I think critically it might not, do much that kind of blows anyone's mind, if that makes sense.
I think that's fair, but I would say my biggest worry is that if this does come out, Paradox Studio, when it comes to grand strategy games, critically speaking, basically hasn't missed for like decades.
No, absolutely. But they have had some kind of, I don't know, Paradox though do have like a weird thing where, again, they're kind of like, they do a niche kind of genre.
But that doesn't really matter because they're doing well on OpenCritic is the thing.
Yeah. But it's more like, I feel like it's not going to be as strong as like some of the others, just because it's an old one. I
mean, look at the other games that they've released like the past decade. It's a thing.
Yeah, and I get it. They do well, but I don't think this is going to do as well. Basically,
yeah, that's fair. I didn't really think about this counter pick because I just don't know much about the games with this. Aside from Crusader Kings kind of thing. Well, Stellaris too, because I actually want to play Stellaris sometime, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I have to say I'm pretty worried about this counter pick, honestly.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the ones that kind of has a chance to backfire, but it's true there is a solid chance it does not come out, which is like the kind of win condition, because I think if it comes out, you'll probably lose one.
And I may do, but I kind of, looking at all my other options when I was counterpicking, I was like, you know what, I reckon that's the one that might not live up to expectations.
Yeah.
R2-D2 1999 is new this year, and
interesting that not a single game of theirs has a set release date.
Yeah. And that's where I think, there's a lot that would probably do well, but starting with Bayonetta 3 for starters.
Yeah, I mean, if Bayonetta 3 comes out, it's going to be one of the best first-round draft picks, right?
If that comes out, that's going to do well, no matter what.
And I will say, I think this game will come out on the basis that, given this game was already known, and it's been, like, a meme development for, like, 5 years or whatever, I don't really see why they would announce that's coming out this year unless they felt pretty confident they could get out,
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say about Bayonetta. It's like...
Yeah. If it comes out, it's scoring like a 90. Just a question if it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was one of the games I considered too, for sure.
Yeah, well, my big question mark on it was just the release date, and that's it. But
Salt and Sacrifice.
Yeah, Salt and Sacrifice is an interesting one, I think.
Yeah. Salt and Sanctuary did well, I would say, for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like that game kind of got lost in the shuffle after a while, though.
Yeah, it had its moment, but I think its moment passed kind of quickly.
Yeah.
But it did well.
It did well as a thing, though.
And again, it's one of those games that if they don't fuck it up, if they just stick to what they're good at, then it'll probably do really well.
Yeah. I've always thought that game kind of had like a mobile game art style for some reason.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
I do kind of wonder if the sequel will face difficulty from the fact that games in its space have massively exploded in both quality and quantity since it came out. Like, it came out before Hollow Knight.
Yeah, that's true.
For example. I could see this game kind of underperforming on it.
Yeah, well, and that's where like this is a genre where I'm not too interested in it, to be honest. But
I think if it comes out, it'll probably do fine. Also, if it'll come out.
Yeah, I could see it not living up to its competitors.
2 Point Campus. I don't really have much to say about it. I imagine it'll do similar to the last game.
Yeah. 2 Point Campus, I think, if that comes out, that'll do well.
This is one of those games I don't know much about, but also, like, when I look it up, it just seems like as long as it has around the same quality as the last game, the people who like it'll like it, and it'll probably do well.
Yeah, I mean, I expect 2 Point Hospital, but Campus.
All right.
Well, the only thing that could work against it is that 2 Point Hospital very much lent on the fact that it was basically like a new version of Theme Hospital from like back in the day.
Yeah.
So if they do the similar sort of thing with Campus, that could be good. But because it doesn't have that direct link like 2 Point Hospital did, that could possibly work against it. But I doubt it. That's just.
I'd also say one other thing that could be a weird downside to it, but, is one of the things that people didn't like about it. They said it was a very repetitive game.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I feel like if a game is very repetitive, that means if a sequel doesn't change it up as much, it's more likely to have a lower score than a game that wasn't criticized for being repetitive.
Yeah, I mean...
Not much else to say about it, though.
Yeah, it's like those sim games, like, they're often very similar, but if they, add enough to make it interesting, but keep it same enough to retain the quality, I think they'll probably do well. I
mean, honestly, R2-D2's draft in general feels so weird to talk about because it feels like almost his entire draft could just not come out. Like, even his counterpick is a game that's not even announced. It's so hard to even talk about it.
But that's kind of like half the fun of, I think, Fantasy Critic. Like,
yeah.
There's just as much chance that it will come out.
Sometimes you don't know what the fuck is going to happen, yeah.
So what about, like, Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D?
This game, if it comes out, will probably, I think, do fairly well.
Yep.
Dragon Quest 3 is very popular among, like, its people. Critics really liked, like, the Octopath Traveler art style.
Yes, and this is using a very similar thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they said it's specifically meant to be that, like, art style, and if you saw the trailer, it looks very similar. So
yeah,
this could be pretty good.
It does have that, gorgeous kind of 3D, 2D style. Like, yeah, Octopath looked awesome too.
But also, like, is it gonna come out? It's a remake, so what's there to say about it?
Yeah,
I mean, we don't even know who's developing it.
But yeah, if it does come out, I think it'll do all right. It's another one of those. Really, there's not much to say.
Yeah, I'd say perhaps the most interesting of his non-Bayonetta 3 picks is actually his last one.
Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge.
These guys who are developing tribute games are kind of on my radar as potentially interesting for the future. They kind of had like an iffy start, but Panzer Paladin seemed like it was pretty interesting, and it got good reviews. I don't know if you've seen video of this game, but it looks really nice.
Yeah, no, I don't know much about this one at all.
Got like a really nice art style for what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kind of thing.
It kind of has that like original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles style from the old beat 'em ups that I like.
Yeah. I mean, it is like a beat 'em up and all that.
But it's using like sprite art. It's not like 3D modeled or anything.
Yeah, I just sent you a screenshot.
Yeah. I'm watching a trailer now as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I thought the trailer actually looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like fun and it looks cool.
Yeah, so I think if this game comes out, it's actually probably potentially one of the higher scoring ones, but this game doesn't have a solid release date. It was only announced last year.
Yeah, it's another one of those, if it comes out, yeah.
It's one of the ones that's pretty iffy. There is one benefit to R2-D2's draft.
What's that?
None of them got counterpicked.
This is true.
So if worse comes to worse, he can at least drop them and get replacements.
Yeah. If they get confirmed to not release, then you'll be able to drop them all if need be.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
this counterpick was the new Fire Emblem game. There's not much to say about it.
No, I think it's pretty much it's an unannounced game, so it's a fairly solid counterpick.
Yep. His entire draft, he has like probably the riskiest draft in the entire draft.
Well, I think he's got the most question mark dates on all these games.
He's the only one I think that doesn't have at least one solid date.
Yeah.
I guess Poke&Paw also doesn't.
Yeah.
Point is, he has a draft where I think only Bayonetta 3 is basically surely coming out.
Yeah, right. Because I don't even know about that one.
They just announced in a direct, like, just to end 2021, that it's coming out in 2022. And they showed, like, a full, like, 4-minute gameplay trailer, too.
Okay, cool.
I don't know why they would announce the date and show a gameplay trailer after 5 years, only to have it be not likely to finish, is all I think.
Yeah. So, Ashgazer with Ashapurna Interactive, another great name.
Yep. Although, unfortunately for him, last year it was more like Ashapurna Interactive. Or I guess the first year, rather.
Yeah, Sifu, the Absolver devs.
I'm not really sure what to think about that, though.
Potentially a big one, I think.
In terms of what the game is about, it seems very interesting. But these guys really haven't put out... Like, they put out, one game, and it wasn't very popular. And I'm not sure about the gameplay footage we saw myself.
But that's where, Absolver was different enough that it really did resonate well with, interestingly, with like fighting game community players, because
Yeah.
it used a lot of like tactical fighting, even though it's like a 3D action world.
Right, which I like. It's interesting. I do wonder how well that will play with critics who usually struggle with that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's one of those ones where if it's the right people, they'll respond to it well, but if not, it might be a bit middling.
I do think the fact that the game was Absolver was like that is potentially a good sign for a game that's a beat 'em up, where you could do some pretty sick stuff. But I do think this is one of the most risky first round picks, but it could turn out very well.
Yeah.
It has a solid release date, which is very nice, and an early one.
There's a few of Ash Gazes in February.
Yeah, he's going to have, the first 2 weeks of February, he's going to have a pretty good idea how his draft went.
Unfortunately, Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp is not one of them.
Yes, unfortunately, because I'm looking forward to that game. This game will do well.
I know nothing about it.
It's a remake of a Game Boy Advance game. It's WayForward's making it, and they're tactical RPGs. They're like Fire Emblem, with like tanks and planes and stuff like that.
Right, okay.
WayForward pretty much always puts out solid stuff.
Yep.
Advance Wars hasn't existed for like 15 years, and it has hardcore fans who have been really hungry for it. As long as they don't mess up the remake, and it looks pretty good so far, that'll score well.
Cool.
It doesn't have like a super high ceiling, but it'll score well.
Well, I think similarly, like Life is Strange Remastered Collection, which is Escage's third pick,
right?
That can't kind of fail.
Pretty much, unless they like somehow fuck up the remastering, like
if they do like a GTA or something.
Right, exactly. And we've seen stuff from it. It doesn't look like they are. That game's gonna get like an 80.
I don't even know. Well, I know why, because of money, but it's not like it needs a remaster anyway, because they're fairly recent games in my book, and they're not out of date even.
The only way I think they could fuck it up is that supposedly they're using full facial motion capture to make the character animation better. So maybe fucking Mass Effect Andromeda happens. That's about the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, that could be a bit weird, yeah.
That's just like a very solid pick.
Meanwhile, Little Devil Inside looks kind of interesting, but again, don't really have much to go on about it.
This is a game, until it was drafted, I had never heard of it before, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's one of those little indie games that...
It's really not the kind of game that instantly strikes out to me, but it looks nice visually.
Yeah.
I think compared to a lot of the games without release dates, this has had like 20-minute gameplay trailers and stuff. That makes me think it's more likely to come out.
Yeah.
They have enough done that they're confident showing a good amount of stuff.
And it does look very nice.
It's a pretty solid pick for where it is, fourth round too.
Yeah, it looks nice from what I've seen. And then...
A Memoir Blue. This is a game I thought about counterpicking.
Yeah, it's actually one I had on my watch list as well, so I was thinking about it.
Yeah, it's one of those games no one really knows about. Not much has been said about it. When you hear about people talk about it, they don't really... I don't know.
I think it was one of those games that, like, no one really does know much about, and...
It's one of those games where when the devs are talking about it, sometimes I'm like, okay, but what is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but to me, it's another Annapurna interactive game, so...
Well, you never know. It could always be the 12 minutes of the year.
It could, absolutely. But I expect it to be kind of, narrative-heavy story kind of game.
Well, that's what it is. That's what they've said it is. It's supposed to be narrative-driven with no words.
Yeah, I mean, it's right up my alley.
It could be like Gris. It could be like Gris, though, because Gris was huge.
Yeah, it's got a lot of potential, I think.
Yeah, it's got a solid release date. If you believe in what the game is doing, that's a perfect spot for it, I would say it's a solid pick, even if I was considering counterpicking it.
And then, of course, Ashgazer counterpicked Redfall.
Yep. Has to really just hope it doesn't come out, because if it comes out...
Yeah, I do think if it does come out, obviously I'm confident in my own picks, but...
Yeah. I mean, there's sometimes I pick stuff I'm not too confident in, but...
No, I reckon all mine will do well.
I'd say Ashgazer actually has a pretty good draft, though.
Yeah, I like Ashgazer's draft. I think it's fairly solid.
Yep. Sifu, I think, is one of the more risky first-round picks, but has a lot of potential. You got 3 games coming out, and I think like Advance Wars and Life is Strange are almost certainly going to at least score well.
Yep.
And then you've got solid risky pick with a Memoir Blue. You got a game that's not coming out but has a lot of gameplay, so it's probably some level of done. Could be good.
Yeah,
I like his draft.
I reckon it's pretty good. We've got another new player next. Yeah, Commissar Tommy with Tommisoft.
Who had a draft that was like it was I was not prepared for it, if that makes sense.
How come?
They just had games I hadn't even thought about, and then I was like, interesting.
I think that's good because it kind of, one thing I've always noticed from just, how on Speak community and that kind of thing is just how much it changes your perception based on what you have available to you, like in the sense of like consoles and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like I'm a good example of that, where like I don't have any Nintendo consoles, so anything Nintendo related just doesn't enter my field of vision, kind of thing.
You can open your mind.
So yeah, as much as I know that it's there and it's doing well and all that kind of thing, it's a total blind spot for me because I've got no personal interest in that sense.
Yeah, it's a boring sport.
So I feel like some of these drafts kind of show everyone's perspective a little, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I feel you.
But I think Tommy's starts off well with Gran Turismo 7.
I'm kind of interested in this game.
It's got a solid date. Gran Turismo does well.
At first when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's Gran Turismo, right? But Gran Turismo 6 only got an 81. They've only made one Gran Turismo game since then, which was surprising because I thought they had made more.
It's an interesting series because I remember for the longest time they were kind of trying to develop a new one, but it kept getting canned or delayed, or the team went bust and went somewhere else or something. I can't remember.
I mean, Gran Turismo 7's like a decade from Gran Turismo 6.
Yeah, exactly.
And for Gran Turismo, that seems very odd.
Yeah, like to me, this Gran Turismo should be almost a yearly installment kind of like franchise for Sony. Like
it was for a while.
Yeah. Well, that's how I remember it on like PlayStation 2.
Yeah. 2001 to 2010, they only missed 2 years. They released one like every year. And then it's just been like gone.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it just totally fell off the radar. So I'm really interested to see what it's like when it comes back with number 7, just because it could be awesome.
Especially because I'd say there's more competition too, right?
Oh, and I think because Forza's on PCs now and everything as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely got a lot more competition to deal with, even though it's Sony exclusive.
Right.
There are plenty of other ways that you can play really good sim racing games.
One thing that's also a bonus for it in a way is because there hasn't been much Gran Turismo lately. If it's really good, it's going to get a bonus basically.
Yeah.
It's going to be like Gran Turismo rocks back to form kind of thing.
Totally. Well, and it comes from a very good series, so there's a lot of potential for it to do really well.
Yeah, I'm honestly really interested how that game does. I think it's one of the cooler first round picks.
Well, and similarly, I think Tommisoft's second pick, Company of Heroes 3, I feel like if that comes out this year, that will probably do quite well as well.
Yeah, I definitely gotta say, this is a game series I don't know much about, but it is an RTS. I like those.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very much a PC-focused kind of series.
Well, it's only on PC.
But the previous ones have always been received well.
Yeah, the previous one got like an 80. It was like 2013, but RTS doesn't have a huge competition.
Yeah.
The other games the studios put out, they've done pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, Age of Empires 4 just recently came out, and that did fairly well.
Yeah, 83. If this game comes out, it'll probably do solid.
Yep.
I could actually see this game actually doing really well, by the way, if it comes out. Because one thing that was interesting is they actually invited like competitive players and modders from the previous series and were like, all right, what do you think about this and that?
Yeah, and that's always a good sign because it shows they're trying to at least appease their existing fan base first.
Right. And they did put out a demo too. They did put out a demo, And a game like this, like you said, that is not the super widespread, appealing to the strong reviews from the people who really like that kind of game is going to be almost, if not more important than the widespread review.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that could end up doing pretty good. And similarly, I think Victoria 3 could potentially be a very strong third round pick if it comes out.
Yeah.
Which is a big if.
I mean, obviously, I counterpicked it, so I don't think so much.
I think if it comes out, it has a good chance of being like an 80 at least.
I think it's got more chance than Pigeon Simulator.
Pigeon Simulator's dead in the water. Look, I could be wrong. It could be great.
Yeah.
There is nothing about this game to me that suggests it will score well. Nothing.
Well, especially because the previous games have been very memey and low scoring as well.
The best, think about it like this, the best one from the developer has lost you points.
Yeah.
If it matches their best game, you get a -1.
Yeah, that's Surgeon Simulator that got 69.
Nice. It's funny because last year Alex also got Balan Wonderworld as a counterpick, as I recall.
No, it was Werewolf, yeah.
That's right. But now, once again, he's gained probably the best counterpick, which is pretty scary.
And we might see a repeat of last year.
One thing that's interesting is Pigeon Simulator doesn't have a release date, though.
Yeah.
And ironically, it could be good if it just doesn't come out.
That'd be a turn of events.
And now I'd say one of the most interesting games as a game that was drafted is Harold Halibut.
Yeah, this game looks cool.
It looks cool as shit. I have no idea if it's coming out, but like this game has like one of the most unique looks of a recent game I have seen in a long time.
Well, I love that it's all like stop motion plasticine animation and stuff. Like,
yes,
that's so cool.
It looks like what, Wallace and Gromit?
Yeah,
kinda. You know?
Yeah, it's the kind of game that, again, like, it's a unknown quantity as like a little indie game, but it looks really cool and it looks like it could really do well.
Yeah. The setting sounds unique. This is the kind of game people are definitely going to take a look at because it's getting kind of hype and has something unique about it, you know?
Yep.
If it comes out, this could be a very interesting game for drafting. And I'm honestly excited to see it. It's even coming to Switch.
Yeah, I'm keen to see how it does because I want to play it.
It's one of those games I'd probably put on my list as long as it doesn't, you know, like get reviews in the 40s or whatever, where it's just like, oh man, really?
Yeah.
But I'm actually glad he drafted it because I hadn't heard about it until he drafted it. And I looked it up. I'm like, dude, this is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's been a few like that for me this year, like where I've looked them up and gone, oh, I'm going to put that on my wish list.
Yeah, same. And Tommy's counterpick was Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah, I have to believe that that's a pick based on it not coming out.
Yes, that's absolutely a pick based on, you know, thing coming.
Because I'm, you know, completely biased, but convinced that it's going to do well when it comes out. So.
I mean, it's got Shinji Mikami and all that. I mean, it seems like you'd be surprised if it was totally bad, at least.
But yeah.
Tommy's draft is pretty interesting, really. I feel like he kind of is like Matt, where he picked a lot of games he liked.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like we were saying, it shows where he's coming from with his own interests and tastes a lot more than some others, maybe.
I mean, you can tell he must really like strategy games. He likes the games that are very unique, like Harold Halibut. Yeah. And even Pigeon Simulator in its own way is pretty unique, you know?
Yeah, totally. It'll be an interesting one to watch, I think.
I think that, in theory, he could potentially score well, but Pigeon Simulator is just really bringing down this draft. No offense to Tommy. Knob has finished 5th this year. It's interesting.
Yeah, who's managed to stay in 5th for 2020 and 21.
Yeah.
He's back again.
About time, too.
With Total War Warhammer 3, which I think is a pretty strong opener.
I actually think he has, in an overall sense, potentially one of the strongest drafts.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I mean, Total War Warhammer has, as a series, does well. Like, it's all high 80s.
86, 86, 85.
Yeah.
Unless this game fucks up, it's going to do well, right?
Yeah, and the Total War games tend to just follow their formula and keep doing well, so...
Yeah. I mean, when you buy a Total War game, you're really looking for something pretty specific, right?
Yeah, and so I think that's pretty a surefire kind of bet, that one.
There's not a lot of competition either, so it's not like, people are challenging it.
Yeah.
And then Plague Tale Requiem, which had to be manager actioned.
Yeah, this was one I had to pick on behalf of Nell, but I think it's actually a decent pick anyway.
I think it's a good pick. I thought this was actually quite a strong pick. I do wonder if it'll come out.
Yeah, that's the only real question about that one, because like the original did well. I imagine this one will be much more of the same, kind of probably about 80s or so.
I could actually see it improving on it too.
Yeah,
because these guys have made like some other games that did well, some that didn't, but those games are older and different genres. And I feel like Plague Tale is one of those games where you could see what didn't work and improve on it for the next game.
I was going to say, did you play the first one?
No, I didn't. It is on my list.
There are definitely areas of that game that, without spoiling anything, but they could have either done without or have improved greatly.
Right.
So as much as I loved the game, like from front to back, it's really good. There are a few moments here and there where you're just like, that wasn't a win, that decision. Like,
Right.
So hopefully they've improved on that this time.
Yeah, and if they do, like, I could see this game having a high end close to like 90 if they fix the problems. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
Plague Tale is one of those 80 games where if they fix it, it has a high ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oxenfree 2.
Which again, good series, well received.
Yeah, I've noticed especially How Long to Beat seems to be quite fond of it.
I think we might have done it for a game of the month, but don't quote me on that.
I believe you did. I have a list of every game on there, but I'm not going to look at it right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Oxenfree was, and so that's probably why lots of people have checked it out. Much to everyone's benefit, because it's a really good kind of mystery, adventure, surreal kind of story game. And I hope they do a very similar thing with the second one.
Well, they sounds like they have. I think this game's, from what I've heard, seems likely to come out too.
Yeah.
But one thing that's interesting is that they've even updated the original game with new dialogue to prepare for the sequel, which also makes me think that's not going to be too long, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like this is one of those like little indie games that anyone who played the first game is going to be interested in it, and critically, it's going to get as much of a reception as the previous one did as well.
Right. If it even just matches the first game, then that's a win.
Yeah.
For that draft.
Because what did that get? Like 80, 81?
81. You know, you gain 81 from your third round pick. You're happy every time with that. And on top of that, I think his fourth round pick could be really good if it comes out.
I'm really interested in seeing what Marvel's Midnight Suns ends up being, just in general.
So am I.
Mostly because it's Firaxis who are working on it. So I'm expecting like Marvel XCOM, essentially.
It's a tactical role-playing game that they've said it is.
Yeah. And if they do that, which sounds obvious, but if they actually do that without messing with it, I reckon it could be really cool.
I agree completely. I mean, apparently they've confirmed that it's going to be similar to XCOM.
Yeah.
And if they put the execution of an XCOM game with the hype behind a Marvel game, this could be very high scoring, I think. Because XCOM games all scored well.
Yeah, I reckon that's a really strong pick, that one.
Like last year, that was one of the reasons I picked up Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, this game doesn't necessarily interest me, but it's clearly quite well made. It's a Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy game, so it's going to do well.
Yeah, pretty much.
This game could easily score into the high 80s if it comes out, and I wouldn't be surprised. And considering where he picked it, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
The real question is just if it comes out, because even when they've announced it, they said it'd be later in 2022. So even a slight delay could fuck it up.
And I reckon that's what Jordan is playing is counting on from having counterpicked it as well.
Yes, absolutely. Because that's a game you think, oh, there's pretty likely not to come out.
Yeah.
And then Ash also had a very interesting last pick, I feel, with Callisto Protocol.
Yeah, this game looks interesting as well. This is one of the ones I hadn't heard of, but then looked at because I saw it was picked.
Yeah, I had heard of it, but I didn't remember the name, because this is the freaking same universe as PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds game.
Yeah, that's the weird part about it to me. Like, that's a universe? Like...
Apparently, but like, what I find interesting is that it's not just the universe. The game studio was specifically created to expand the PlayerUnknown Battleground universe.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
By the guy who co-created Dead Space. Like, what?
Like, the game looks cool, but that's a really bizarre kind of story.
Yes, exactly. This game, I'm really not sure if it'll come out. And just the weird nature of it makes it weird. At the same time, this is the co-creator of Dead Space, with at least 30 former co-workers from the Dead Space studio.
Exactly. And they're working on a new horror game? Like,
if it's even close to the reception Dead Space had.
Yeah, totally.
Because Dead Space got like 90s and high 80s all around.
Yeah, this one really, to me, feels like the kind of game that will either swing wildly one way or the other.
Yep, I agree completely.
Like, I think if it does well, it'll do really well. But it could potentially really tank as well.
Well, yeah, if they mess it up, or if this turns into some super weird, like, if it suddenly turns into just PlayerUnknown Battleground halfway through or whatever, you know?
I think that unfortunately that's the thing that's really throwing me off. Like, if if I'd never known that, I'd probably have a fairer opinion of it. But...
I mean, you have to worry, like, would the people who made it, like, be interfering, right? And the other thing is, this game does not have a set release date at all. They have not even really... They haven't even really said it's 2022, I think. I think that's just an assumption, too. And while the studio is former Dead Space, they've only actually worked on one other game, which was one of the very less popular Call of Duty games.
Yes.
So can they actually execute the vision?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting game to keep an eye on because, who knows?
And then...
Yeah, interestingly, I thought this was a kind of interesting counterpick from Nalb, who counterpicked unannounced Call of Duty game.
Yeah, so did I.
Mostly because even though it's unannounced, you can almost guarantee that a Call of Duty is going to come out this year.
I mean, when was the last time a Call of Duty did come out in a year?
Exactly.
I'm actually curious now.
I guess the only thing you could hope for is its scores is quite low.
The last time a Call of Duty game did come out was 2004.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So a Call of Duty game will come out. Here's the thing I think is interesting real quick, which is I think this might have been a good pick next year, but not this year.
Right.
Critically, the Infinity Ward games almost always do better, and the Treyarch games almost always do worse. You can see the ones I listed. All the ones in the 70s are the Treyarch games. 80s are the Infinity Ward games. And if they follow the same pattern, I believe this year should be an Infinity Ward game. So it should be one of the better reviewing ones.
I thought it was an interesting counterpick because it's kind of like, even though it's unannounced, it's definitely coming out.
Right. I mean, what would be really funny? It's not going to happen. What's really, really funny is because of the new merger with the Microsoft buying it, it caused Call of Duty to be delayed.
Well, yeah, I mean, who knows?
Because they have to work out all the rights and stuff with like PlayStation or whatever. I definitely think it's one of the more interesting counterpicks. I think it's one of the more likely to go wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
because this game has to be coming out. And the Infinity Ward games will probably get like 80. Like, if there's one unannounced game that's coming out, it's Call of Duty 2022.
Yep. Well, I think, like, compared to, say, like, new Fire Emblem game, I'd bet on Call of Duty over that one. So.
Right. Like, the new Fire Emblem game, I think, would do better critically.
Yeah, probably.
I think the Fire Emblem game is maybe 50% coming out. Call of Duty is coming out.
Yeah.
Aside from the counterpick, I think Knob has one of the best drafts of anyone here.
Yeah, I think it's pretty strong. There's definitely a few in there which I think are pretty much locked in.
Is probably for him, the critical game is probably Marvel Midnight Suns and Callisto Protocol. If those games don't come out, or like Callisto is bad, that really hurts his bottom half. If they come out good, he's one of the front runners to win, 100%.
Speaking of front runners,
Poke&Paw,
champion from 2020, 7th in 2021.
And a real downturn for sure.
But Poke&Paw is always one to watch because she has some cool picks, that's for sure. The thing I like about watching Poke&Paw's draft and like what she picks is like a lot of it's stuff I haven't heard of or isn't in my wheelhouse. Yeah, so I always find it interesting to see what she comes up with.
I feel like Poke&Paw had like the opposite of my draft where I had like no indies. Hers is entirely indies. Like mine are heavy on the people who've made a lot of games. Most of hers haven't even made any of them.
Well, the first one she picked was Stray, which is a new game franchise.
It is, by Annapurna. And this game, I'm pretty excited for.
Same. It looks very cool.
I do wonder if it'll come out. She picked it last year and it didn't come out, unfortunately. But this game looks really interesting.
I mean, it's another Annapurna Interactive one that says to me it's going to be kind of a bit moody, a bit story-focused. And
I don't know. To me, this one I thought interested me more than a lot of the other ones. I thought it looks very pretty. And how many games do you play as a stray cat going through like a robot city? That's such like a cool idea for an open world game.
I think it'll get a lot of attention as well because it's that cool kind of idea. Like you're playing as a cat, so immediately that's interesting.
Yeah, you're playing as a cat. It's a robot city. What happened? And since it's Annapurna, it'll get attention as well too. It's not be like some indie release that gets ignored.
Yeah, it'll get promoted for sure. But Slime Rancher 2.
Yeah, Slime Rancher 2, which is interesting. The first Slime Rancher was reasonably well received.
Yeah.
I could definitely see getting more points and being improved a fair amount, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I personally retired Slime Rancher 1, only because there was just too much in it and I got bored. Too much of the same thing.
Right. Slime Rancher is one of those games that's pretty specific on the kind of thing that people like. The people want to buy it, you know.
Well, and that's not saying anything against its quality or anything. Like it was very well made, and I can see why people really got into it.
Right, right.
It's very well put together.
I think something to consider is that, like you said with Dying Light 2, this game got a lot more popular with time.
Yeah.
It only has a 76 review, but the Reader's Choice for that year, it actually tied in third place for like Game Informer and stuff. And it ended up selling over 5 million copies. So this ended up being a big game.
Well, and that's where I think if Slime Rancher 2 like expands on what they have, like rather than it being a kind of make your own adventure open worldy thing, if they put in more I don't want to say like quests, but more kind of like purposeful things to do.
More direction.
Yeah, more direction is a good way to put it. Because that's kind of what lost me on it anyway, was just the lack of direction. So after a while, I got kind of a bit bored and went, I'll do something else. But
I can see what you mean.
So I'd like to see them do something with more direction so that it's a bit more engaging. But I think if they, just kind of up the ante, it'll probably be popular regardless.
I could also see that as well, because one of the issues with the first game is that some of the people who are making it weren't much big on knowing anything about programming. So that probably limited them for more of the newer people or part of the team and stuff, right?
Yeah, totally.
So they might be able to do more stuff.
So yeah, I think Slime Rancher 2 is a good, a fair pick.
Have a nice death. This is a game I know nothing about.
But I remember the art style, because it's kind of like this cute kind of skeleton art style.
Oh, wait a minute. I do remember this game now. I just remembered it because it was at the Game Awards, so I saw that trailer. That's literally all I know about it, though. This game seems fun.
The one thing that worries me is that it's going to release into early access. So
yes, it might not get reviews
it might not get as many reviews, and those reviews might not be 100% positive depending on how complete it is when it releases.
Well, not only that, there's the worry that if it goes into early access and things don't go well, they delay it to fix it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're screwed.
So that would be an interesting one to watch, just to see how it gets received, and I think it'll be a good one for anyone playing to keep an eye on, just to see how a new early access game kind of does or does not get reviewed.
Yeah, I agree, because I wasn't really sure about that either.
Well, and her fourth pick is Silt, which is another one I didn't know much about.
Which I kept thinking was Slit at first.
Yeah. I did have to reread it a couple of times just to check.
This game seems interesting. If it comes out, it seems like it's a game that would be popular to me.
Oh, yeah, no, I did check this out, yeah. It looks interesting, but the one thing that kind of puts me off is just the animation is the kind of animation that doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, I see it. I see what you mean.
It looks cool, don't get me wrong, but I think it looks like it falls into that kind of indie game which would be cool and has lots of interesting ideas, but is perhaps limited by, being only a few people making it or something like that. I don't know how many people are making this, but it feels like that smaller team.
I get what you mean. I understand you. I mean, it must not be many people because they don't even have a Wikipedia page kind of thing.
But it feels like it's one of those very small team indie games that might have some cool ideas and stuff, but just purely because of the nature of their limitations isn't going to necessarily knock it out of the park.
This could be an interesting game, but it's pretty early to say. They at least have shown gameplay, so that makes it a bit more likely to come out.
Well, and they do reckon early 22, so...
Yeah, that's another thing. At least it says early 22, that gives you more wiggle room. It's one of those games, like a lot of Poke&Paws, it's hard to compare it and really have a good idea, I think, how many games really look like this that are out? Really even see how people would think about it.
Well, that's what I was thinking about Minako's Night Market, which is... her final pick.
Yeah.
As in, just looking at it, there's the art style and everything looks really cute and interesting, but I'm not quite sure what the game is about.
If I recall, it's like a merchant kind of game with maybe some adventure elements, kind of like Moonlighter, maybe.
Yeah, right.
This game looks like it's the kind of thing that appeals to me.
Yeah.
Because it's cute.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I'm not sure how well it will review.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm stumbling a bit on it, because it looks cool, and I can see why it would be interesting.
Plus, while it's cute, I do think some of the art is a bit unappealing for me as well.
Yeah.
I do think counterpicking it's a good counterpick from Wreck Dragon.
Yeah.
This definitely looks like the kind of game that could not work out well.
Yeah, it's got the potential to not really resonate with the right reviewer.
This game has also been in development for 3 years. Although it does have the bonus that it's is it a Switch exclusive or is it just on Switch? I think it's a Switch exclusive.
It's on Steam as well, so Humble Games are publishing it. So
Since it's a Switch game, they get to go on the they get to piggyback on Indie World if they want to get publicity.
yeah, well, that's true. And I was going to say, like, being under Humble Games, it's probably got a certain level of quality because, like, you can expect something of certain quality from them.
I mean, it gives them some backing, you know?
Yeah, it's not like some random indie publisher so that you don't know anything about. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's got backing. And then there's the counter pick.
Yeah, Big Rick's pick.
I think this is a good counter pick because I don't think this game is coming out, but you really better hope it doesn't come out.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4 Remake, which is only rumored. I would say, yeah, if that comes out, you're toast.
I forget if they did, look at one thing. What did Resident Evil 3 Remake get? It got an 80. And I think that's got to be the floor, right? That's got to be the lowest Resident Evil 4 Remake will go.
Yeah.
But that can easily get like a 90 and just destroy your draft.
Absolutely.
Even the rumors about that game say it will only come out in late 2022. And that's iffy to count on a game that hasn't been announced. And even if it is announced, will probably be announced late to not be delayed or anything in the current environment.
Yeah.
So I think it's a solid enough counter pick. But you just gotta really hope it doesn't come out.
Yep.
Poke&Paw's got one of the hardest drafts for me to get a read on, though.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think like her previous drafts, though, like it's either, and reflected in the fact that there are no solid release dates. Her games usually either just don't come out or do actually do quite well.
Right. I agree with that.
I feel like she's got a good kind of feel for what might come out, except for Boldo from last year. But
everybody makes mistakes, right?
Everyone has their misses.
I mean, last year they had SMTV, Kenna, Busta Fellows, and a lot of those are like the indie picks too. Like they seem to have a very good pulse on what to do well there.
So yeah, I'd still be keeping an eye on Poke&Paw because I think she's got some tricks up her sleeve.
Like one thing about picking games like this that are very indie and new and there's no previous ones is that means there's pretty high ceiling. They can knock it out of the park.
Yeah, totally.
So there's a lot of potential.
Next up, we've got another new player, Clumsy Penguin, with Penguin Publishing. And
they have the big risk first rounder.
They managed to pick the Breath of the Wild 2 pick.
I gotta say, really good pick. I mean, and it's kind of surprising Breath of the Wild 2 lasted until like the 10th or 11th pick, honestly.
Yeah, actually, I'm a bit surprised by that. But I think there is that question of will it come out this year still? I don't think anyone is questioning whether it'll do well.
I think there's a pretty big question mark. But I do think it seems likely to come out, personally.
Yeah, I would kind of expect it to come out this year.
Because it seemed like they were aiming for 2021 and then kind of got forced to delay it to me.
Yeah, like I feel like it's pretty much ready to go.
Right. And I mean, if it comes out, it's probably going to be the highest scoring game that was drafted.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Breath of the Wild got a freaking 96.
Oh yeah, there's not much to say about Breath of the Wild 2 really in my book.
Yeah.
But similarly, I think Mario and Rabbids Spark of Hope, as much as I'm so not interested in those games, they do so well.
I do have a bit of a worry about this game in the sense that, how should I put this? Ubisoft doesn't necessarily have a long pedigree with the style of game.
Right.
And I think the first Mario plus Rabbids benefited from novelty because Mario and Rabbids, whoever in a million years expected that to happen.
Yeah, true.
So there will be a bit of a novelty wearing off, but the first game was very successful. Mario games are going to usually do well, right? Ubisoft usually reviews well.
Yeah.
And having played the first game, it's very polished.
Yeah.
If you into that kind of game, it seems quite fun in my opinion.
Yep.
It's a very solid pick.
Yeah.
There is not a release date on it, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's one of those ones where if it does come out, you're probably going to gain points. It's just a matter of how many.
It does have the bonus that they did show gameplay, so it must be some level of finished,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a very good chance to score well, as long as it comes out like in 85, 80s.
Yeah, totally.
And personally, one of my favorite picks in the draft, once I actually looked it up and was excited about it, was Sea of Stars.
Yeah, this one I'm not too familiar with, so...
It looks very nice. It's, classic RPG. They've said their inspiration is like Chrono Trigger style SNES RP rather than like Earthbound style.
And this is the one from the creators of The Messenger, of course.
Yes, and it's actually tied into the universe, too.
Yeah.
And there actually are some parts in The Messenger that seem like they will connect to it.
Yeah, no, I can see this doing well.
The battle style looks like it's got an interesting look to it. I'm not entirely sure if some of the stuff I think is actually there. But, like, it looks like it's got, like, weird multi-targeting and maybe even, like, a level of action community kind of stuff. It's got some exploration. This is one of those games where, like, if it's up to the quality of the previous game and it looks like it's looking quite good, then this could easily score quite a lot. Yeah,
well, and I think because of, like, being from the Messenger creators, and it'll get that attention, and it looks pretty decent, and, you know, like, it's got lots to it, and there's a bit of depth into it, so hopefully it's received well.
Probably the biggest question is, does it come out? Because it does not have a release date. They have shown gameplay on their Twitter, of all things, and they have gameplay in the trailer.
Yeah.
So, again, it's more likely to come out. But for me, I'm really interested in that game.
What about Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster, which we kind of talked about before?
We did. I'm just going to say again, at first I thought this was not necessarily a good pick because, like you said, I looked at the fans. I was like, this could get bad reviews.
Yeah.
And then I looked at it, and this actually looks like a game I would pick. So
yeah.
This game looks like it's going to be a minimum 75, potential 80 plus.
Yeah, and I think despite the maybe social media complaints and stuff, if you look at the scores of the previous games, they're all positive. So
right. I can't see a world where the most popular of these Final Fantasies that were remade randomly get so much worse than all the other remasters. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that's all we really need to say. We covered that one quite a lot. System Shock.
Well, System Shock, I think, is actually quite risky.
I think it's very risky. I think it's one of the riskiest picks.
Because I feel like it's the kind of game that, if it comes out, like, there's always the question of will it be released, but if it does come out, I could so see it not being done very well.
Here's the thing to consider. Night Dive Studio has a good amount of games come out. They're almost all remasters. This will only be their third game they've actually developed.
I mean, it is kind of a remaster if you want to think about it that way, but like they've got a lot of source material.
I mean, it's arguably a remaster, but I would say there's quite a lot of remake too.
Oh, it's definitely more of a total remake or a reboot.
Yeah, it is. And there's a huge pedigree and expectation behind this game, right?
Yeah, that's the thing that scares me. It's like people love System Shock.
If this game is bad, it will be eviscerated.
That's what I mean. If it does not live up to their expectations, people will rip the shit out of this game.
It's been delayed multiple times. It was announced in 2015. It's 2022.
Like a lot of things, though, if they knock it out of the park, like, if they end up doing like a Resident Evil Remake 2.
Certainly, but this game, I think, is one of the riskiest ones because I think there's a good chance this doesn't necessarily do so hot.
Yeah.
Like, something to consider, we talked about how it's the remaster aspects. It actually did a remaster of the first System Shock, and it got an 83. And that somehow feels low to me, considering System Shock's pedigree.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would have expected more.
And then Pokemon Let's Go 2 is obviously just, you don't think this game will come out.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair enough counterpick, I think.
Yeah, if it comes out, it'll get like an 80. I'd go so far as to say I'd be surprised if it came out.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly solid counter.
Because the main team is working on Arceus Legends. And considering that game is very different, I bet they've had a lot of resources, especially on it.
Right.
And even like the one they outsourced, Sony just finished the Diamond and Pearl remake last year, or late last year too. So I just don't know where they would have found the time to actually make Pokemon Let's Go 2.
It's one of those ones, isn't it? It like a lot of others where if it comes out, you're probably getting screwed, but it probably won't come out anyway, so it might be a good counter pick.
But overall, I'd say Clumsy Penguin's draft is very strong. This is one of the front runners.
Yeah, there's a lot of good picks now. I mean, Breath of the Wild 2 kind of is a great start.
Breath of the Wild 2 is like, if this game comes out, you're instantly have a good position. Mario and Rabbids, very solid. The Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, very likely to get 80 plus in my opinion. Sea of Stars, high potential. System Shock's the only iffy one. And System Shock, if they do succeed, like you said, could really outplace where it goes.
Oh, it could do amazingly, yeah.
Top to bottom, lots of potential.
Which leads us to Big Rick Energy with Koei Ricmo, who came 10th.
One of my favorite names here, I've got to say.
Yeah, it's another excellent pun. Rick came 10th in 2021. Didn't have the best year.
Really didn't. That was his first year, though, right?
Yeah.
He got screwed by Breath of the Wild 2 not coming out.
Yeah, that didn't help.
I mean, he wouldn't have done well, but like he could have gone easily in the mid tiers if it came out. You know what I mean?
But unfortunately, he did have he had 3 games which lost him score.
Yeah, well, he counterpicked a game that lost him score too, which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
And he also had games that were had a lot of potential and then just didn't do well, like 12 Minutes and Sable.
Yeah.
12 Minutes was a good pick. It just didn't work out.
I think Sable as well was a solid pick.
Yeah, like if I was looking at the draft of those today, I'd be like, oh yeah, these are nice picks.
However, Rick's first pick for this year is Starfield, which I think has a pretty solid kind of potential to be good.
Realistically speaking, this game is almost certainly going to review well, but I will say I have some level of trepidation in this.
Because it's Bethesda?
Yeah, because Bethesda, especially lately, has had a lot of games released in very poor states that caused bad initial reviews.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of.
And something else to consider. This is the first new thing Bethesda's done in forever.
Yeah.
So it does feel like there's a bit of an inherent risk they messed it up. At the same time, when Bethesda does hit, they hit.
Yeah, exactly.
And it has a solid release date.
Discounting Fallout 76, they've still scored pretty well, in recent times.
And something to consider, Fallout 76, a lot of it was outsourced. They're not outsourcing this game.
But, 76 got 53, which obviously is horrible. But Fallout 4 still got 88. Even though people complain about it, it's still a solid game.
Right. And I think Starfield is way more likely to be Fallout 4 than Fallout 76.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is one of those games where I'm personally unsure about, but realistically speaking, it'll probably do well.
And it's got a solid release date, so that's good.
Yes, it has a strong release date, and it fits its Flux position to boot.
It could potentially get pushed till early next year.
Yes, which is a worry because Bethesda does like delays too.
Yeah, but then they're going to miss out on that sweet Christmas spot, so I reckon they'll try and hang on to it. And they have been hyping it up.
And it's been in development a while, so it's likely to be some level of finished, right?
Yep.
Trek to Yomi.
Yeah, I don't know much about this at all.
The visual style on this game is sick.
Yeah.
It's all black and white, like a Kurosawa film.
Yeah, it does look very cool.
My biggest worry about this film is that while it looks great visually, all of the gameplay looks like extremely basic hack and slash, beat 'em up kind of stuff. So I do wonder if this is a game where it's going to be like, this game looks really cool, but the gameplay didn't match up, and it, quote-unquote only gets an 80, but you'd be happy with that still.
Well, and I think it's got that look about it where you feel like it's going to do well. It's just, like you say, is it going to be more style over substance? Or
the unique art style and all that means it has a solid floor, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be some people who are just, by definition, are like, this is such cool-looking stuff. It makes up for X deficiency.
Yeah, putting it on my wish list, that was rad.
I know. That's what happened to me because I hadn't heard about this game. And then I looked it up. I'm like, no, this looks sick, though.
This looks like my kind of game.
This is a PlayStation exclusive, so it will be very promoted.
Well, it's on Steam as well.
Oh, really? I thought it was only on PlayStation.
No, I'm looking at the Steam page.
Well, PlayStation put on their official YouTube anyway.
Well, they'll probably promote it, sure, if it's on their platform. But I think it being published by Devolver as well kind of gives it a bit of a ticker quality.
Oh yeah, Devolver usually puts out good stuff. Interestingly, these are the same devs as Shadow Warrior in part.
Well, and that's the thing, Devolver to me, I don't necessarily get into all their games, but they do have that track record of at least their quality games one way or the other.
I'd say the key thing is that Devolver games, they usually publish games that review well, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
They know what kind of works.
Yeah.
We got the Resident Evil 4 remake. Rick betting on the fact it will exist.
Yep, and like we said, if it does, it'll probably do well, but...
Yep. That's just a very risky pick. If it comes out, it's probably the highest scoring third round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon it will do really well if it comes out, basically.
And then
an interesting one.
Yeah, Rick picked a lot of ones that were really. I thought he had one of the riskier drafts, but Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. This could be another high-scoring game if it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the Arkham series.
Yes, and it's by Rocksteady, not some random studio doing it,
Yeah, so they're all, big pluses in my book. Even though I don't know much about the game, just knowing that it's in that series and has Rocksteady on it, I'm feeling good about it already, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, it's got the DC property. It's part of the Arkham. It's supposed to be a continuation of Arkham Knight. The gameplay is an open world action adventure, although it's set in Metropolis instead of Gotham.
Yeah.
I imagine it'll play fairly similar to,
I wouldn't want it to be any different, really. Like, for me, the reason those Batman games are so good is because of that formula that they kind of stuck to, where it's not the most challenging, but you feel like a total badass when you play it.
Right. And this game is, I mean, it's a Suicide Squad game with, like, Harley Quinn and all that, so you know it's going to be a super style-based game.
Yeah. It sounds like fun.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because, like, it sounds like Superman and all that will be like bosses you fight, and that'll be kind of different and unique, you know?
Yeah, that could be interesting, actually.
I know DC has wanted to make a game like this and has been pushing for it since like 2010. So they are very incentivized to push this game.
Well, yeah, that could be a very interesting pick all up, because it's kind of a bit out of left field for me. But
yeah, I had it on my watch list, not necessarily because I was super interested in it, although I think it will be good, but because I just know it's one of those games. If it comes out, there's a high chance it's good.
Yeah, cool.
And then unannounced Call of Duty, which I was surprised this needed to be a manager action.
Well, for anyone who doesn't know, when someone takes longer than 24 hours, I pick for them. And
I thought manager action was because it wasn't in the database.
No. It means I've picked on behalf of that person. So Rick just got sidetracked and forgot about the whole thing. And so after it was actually a bit longer, it's probably more like 36 hours or something, I drafted this game for him.
I mean, you drafted a pretty solid game.
Well, and that's where I don't necessarily pick the game. I just go, whatever the most hyped game on the site that's still available is, that's what you...
that makes
that's
sense.
what you get drafted. So you don't necessarily, get something bad, but you don't get what you necessarily wanted either.
You did exactly what auto draft does.
Basically, yeah. I'm like a little manual auto draft for if someone doesn't, if someone takes a bit too long, just to kind of keep things moving.
And I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I still think, it's a Call of Duty game. It probably will come out. I think it'll probably will do well.
It'd be shocking if it doesn't come out. It'll probably get like an 80 as a fifth pick. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I had thought about it, I would have picked this possibly.
Well, exactly. It's not too terrible, even though it's like unannounced. I think of all the unannounced games, there's some series which are really okay for that, like Call of Duty or like Assassin's Creed or, those kind of big franchises.
The last time Call of Duty didn't come out, George W. Bush was president.
Well, there you go.
And then he's the one who counterpicked the one game that got counterpicked against me.
Stranger in Paradise, of course.
Yep, and I'd say it's a good counterpick. I think the game would do well personally.
Yeah.
But this is a game that definitely has the potential to do quite badly.
Well, it's one of those more like wild card kind of kind of things. Like, yeah, it looks cool, but
if this does like Final Fantasy Type 0 and scores a 72 and you only get a -2, you're pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
And I think this game, in theory, could totally flop and get like a 60 or some shit. In which case, Rick just has a huge advantage.
Well, I know he's going for the podcast host trifecta.
Yeah, it's true, because Alex and Poke&Paw won. Yeah. Well, you see, that just means I win, I have to replace him on the podcast. That's just how it works, right?
Well, maybe that's what the alternate outcome should be. Yeah. Whoever actually wins replaces Rick.
Whoever wins becomes the fourth host.
So yeah, Jordan is playing as a new player with Bog Creations LLC. And yeah, Jordan is playing came right out with Hollow Knight Silksong, which is a bit of a classic in the Fantasy Critic League kind of rosters.
Of all the games that we've said of, if it comes out, it'll be good, but God, does it come out? It's the most like that.
I think this is one that has been picked like every single year. I could be wrong, but I feel like something like that.
I feel like it has, for sure. I mean, if it comes out, it's going to be scoring like 90 plus probably, right?
Absolutely.
I feel like everybody pretty much has already anointed that it will be very good.
Yeah, I think this is a very straight kind of, if it comes out, top marks, but maybe it doesn't.
My God, does this game just seem like it's never going to come out?
They are taking their time.
The thing that really makes it feel like it's not going to come out is just that it's never talked about.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not even like it's being delayed, so you know what's happening. It's just not happening. It's just, we know it in theory exists, but it sure doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, there's all the hype, but there's nothing else.
They haven't even said it'll come out this year. It doesn't even have a 2022 release date. It's just You better hope, you better pray.
That's definitely the riskiest one on Jordan's list, I think, but also potentially the strongest.
One thing I like about Jordan is that he picked a super risky game, and then he picked a bunch of games with solid release dates.
Yeah.
To kind of hedge against it. And nobody's counter-picking Silksong, so we can definitely drop it if it doesn't release.
Well, I think that's a counter-pick where it is like suicide. If it does come out, you know that's going to ruin you forever.
The only way you counter-pick it is if it's really late in the year and you think it won't come out and you want to lock him out dropping it.
Yeah, that's true.
But aside from that, no.
His second pick is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
Yes, this is a really interesting pick, I think, in a way.
Well, this is one that I remember hearing about ages ago, but it's obviously not out yet.
Yeah, it has a release date at least.
Yeah, it's got a solid date for March 25th, but yeah, I mean, I think it'll be popular because Borderlands, people love that shit.
Here's what I find interesting. Borderlands 2 was really popular, right?
Yeah.
All their games afterwards have seen a very steady drop in reviewing. Borderlands 3 got an 80, which was good, but not like Borderlands 2, obviously. The pre-sequel didn't do well. Battleborn was a joke. Technically, Alien Colonial Marines was a thing, but I don't really think that is relevant to the current discussion kind of thing, you know? I kind of wonder if this game's gonna not meet expectations.
Well, I kind of have this feeling that, like, because the Telltale Borderlands game, whatever that was called, because that did so well, like, that was one of the best Telltale, point-and-click adventures.
Yeah. I agree.
I feel like they're going to maybe lean into a bit of that kind of stuff with Tiny Tina's while still making it, a first-person shooter kind of thing. But I feel like they're going to try a bit of that, push the boat out a bit further with the wacky humor and that kind of thing, and less grind, get different weapons.
Well, one of the interesting things I heard, because I had a lot of friends, I didn't play Borderlands 3, but I had a lot of friends and watched a lot of people because of it playing it. Is actually heard a lot of people were kind of upset because it didn't lean into Tales from the Borderlands enough. It kind of felt like it was trying to distance itself almost in some areas.
I'd agree with that, but I feel like this one will probably maybe get a little bit closer.
Some of the ones that were popular were the ones that were like that, so I wonder if it's like what you're saying. Like, since that was some of the stuff that was working well, maybe they'll lean into it more.
Well, and like some of the original DLCs and stuff, which were a bit more wacky and, off the wall a bit, they were really popular as well because I think, Borderlands is the kind of universe and game where it is kind of a bit silly and they have kind of always had humor in it. So when it gets bogged down with like grindy stuff, you kind of forget that and it's not as enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, I'd say another thing is they need to dial it back a little bit because one of the biggest things about Borderlands 3 is that it was just so much of that,
Yeah, okay. I think it's got potential, that's for sure.
But I just wonder if it will be a bit of an underperformance. Because I think Borderlands 3, in my opinion, underperformed critically compared to what was expected.
Yeah, I'd agree with that totally. And I feel like there's a bit of, especially after Borderlands 3, there's kind of a bit like, yeah, okay, we know we're a bit bored of Borderlands now.
Yeah. I mean, I'd also just say the environment of what people are looking for is not as kind to Borderlands games as 2012, I think.
Yeah.
But we got Dying Light 2.
That's your counterpick.
That's right. I mean, this game could mess me up, but
yeah.
Dying Light 1 did not necessarily review well, and I am pretty worried about what they're doing with it.
Yep, it'll be interesting to see where it goes and how it's received, considering the evolution of the first game, I think, which obviously doesn't change anything critically, but I'm interested to see what happens.
I mean, something to consider is all the stuff I said about them changing stuff, they could change it for the better.
Yeah, exactly.
It could suddenly be like, well, the people weren't sure of it at first, but my God, they knocked it out of the park, and then it's like an 88 or whatever.
Yeah.
Weird West.
I feel like Weird West could potentially be super cool.
Yeah, it could be. This was another game. Until it was picked, I had not heard about it before. I can't be the only one who thought the portraits in this game, like in Minions, looks like Darkest Dungeon, right?
It's definitely got, that kind of feel in parts. I mean, to me, it just looks like a big kind of Diablo-esque Western game.
Yeah, it is, with a lot of emphasis on environmental stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to think of the graphics of the game, but this definitely looks like one of those games where I feel like the critics could really like it, if it knocks it out of the park. this just seems like one of those games where if it does what it wants to do, this will be popular.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's another Devolver game, so I kind of think it has to have a certain amount of quality.
It's going to have at least a certain level of polish. It's not going to be,
So I feel like it would be definitely an interesting one to check out.
It's pretty interesting, yeah. Atelier Sophie 2 I had on my watch list.
This was a random one. When I saw it come out, I thought, oh, really? Like, as a pick. But it kind of makes sense, though, as well, because it's just a series that...
They churn out games pretty reliably.
Yeah, but it's also... It is one of those series that kind of appeals to a certain person, but not everyone.
It's worth noting... the Atelier Sophie games are a bit different from most of the Atelier games.
Oh, okay.
Most of the Atelier games, at least of the recent ones, I don't know the full history despite having a lot of friends. They're role-playing games with crafting components, and like Atelier Ryza was a bit of like an action RPG in some respects, I believe. The Atelier Sophie games and the games in that sub-series have city elements, like city building elements.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So they're a bit different.
Well, yeah, because I know the other ones kind of focus on your own little shop.
Yeah.
And you go do dungeons and stuff to collect things to sell and craft and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Usually in that game, your main character doesn't actually have any default attacks, and you have to craft everything.
Yeah, right.
This game, I imagine it'll do similar to the other games in the quote-unquote mysterious sub-series, which is like Sophie and Theris, I believe.
Right.
So I'm betting it'll do around the mid to high 70s. Perfectly solid for its position.
Yeah.
It's got a reliable release date.
I feel like it'll be more of the same from the previous game, but that's a good thing, really.
Yeah, it's just one of those games. It'll basically appeal to who it appeals to. They basically just have to hope it doesn't get hit too much with what the last release in that series got, of being accused of being a bit stale.
Yeah, right.
But I think it'll do solid.
But yeah, Jordan's counterpick of Marvel's Midnight Suns. Again, I think this game's going to do well.
The counterpick is very clearly just you don't think it'll come out this year, basically.
Yeah.
But this is a risky one for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against Firaxis for making a good tactics game.
I wouldn't bet against Firaxis with Marvel brand and marketing branding.
Yeah.
Making a tactical XCOM game.
Yeah.
If it comes out.
But we've kind of covered that one anyway.
Yeah, we have.
But overall,
I would say it's interesting. Obviously, Silksong is the big one. Like, Silksong probably decides. So if Silksong comes out, the draft is good. If Silksong doesn't come out, this draft doesn't have enough potential to make up for it.
Yeah, it seems like there aren't any other real big hitters or surefire big hitters at least.
Right. It's a lot of really solid games that would do well to fill out the list if Silksong comes out, but won't power to a victory if it doesn't.
Yeah. So next up we've got Dragon, who has NoiseLabs and came fourth in 2020 and eighth last year in 2021.
Yeah, it was a bit of a drop. They got screwed kind of by picking a lot of games that didn't come out. I also just had a lot of low-scoring games from picking remakes that didn't turn out too well.
Absolutely. But this year, he's kicking it off with Splatoon 3.
Yes, which, I mean, Splatoon is obviously very popular. It does pretty well. I was surprised the Splatoon 2 had that level of open critic reviews, actually.
I wonder if it is just because it is, first-party Nintendo exclusive, so...
I also just kind of wonder if it doesn't necessarily appeal as much. The people who are going to be traditionally into shooters in the U.S. reviewing market are probably going to gravitate less towards the really colorful one, right?
Yeah. No.
I think you'd agree that's probably generally true.
Well, and it's probably seen as more of like a kid's game than a serious kind of shooter or whatever.
Right.
I mean, I haven't played it, so I have no idea, but...
I mean, it has like an esport and stuff, but most people who, are going to be reviewing and paying attention aren't thinking of that. Like, something to consider is Splatoon is much more popular in Japan than America.
Yeah.
So that's probably a notable part of it.
But I do think if it does come out, it'll do well, because, the others are in the 80s, so no reason this one wouldn't be.
Well, like, when I first saw it, I was thinking it could be, like, 88 or whatever, but I was surprised Splatoon and Splatoon 2 were, like, low 80s. I do think Splatoon 3 looks like it's changing things up and trying some interesting things.
Well, that's cool. And, at the end of the day, being in the 80s is pretty good.
Just, compared to, like, some of the other first-rounders, I was thinking it might be on the higher end compared to what it looked like it's on.
Well, and Dragon's second pick is another Nintendo one.
Yes, Triangle Strategy.
Yeah.
I think this game is definitely going to do well, personally.
Yeah.
It's made by the same people who did all the Bravely games and Octopath Traveler, and those all reviewed well. It's got the really pretty art style. This was actually a game I wanted to pick.
Okay. Yeah, this is, again, because it's Nintendo, I don't really know much about it, but...
It's got very... it's not really Fire Emblem. I was going to say Fire Emblem because it's tactile RPG. It's much more like Final Fantasy Tactics, it looks like.
Okay.
Than Fire Emblem, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's got that really cool art style, so...
Yeah, they had a full demo with, like, multiple chapters.
Nice.
And people seem to like it. So that is very uplifting if you're doing it. It's got a solid release date. This was originally what I was going to put in my flex position, and then I got first pick, and I'm like, Elden Ring exists, so...
Yeah, I mean, as you say, all the Bravely Default games have been scored well, and Octopath Traveler, and...
The worst Bravely game got a 78, and that would be fine. And that's like the low end. I think it's likely to get higher.
Yeah, an interesting one is River City Girls, which is his third pick.
Yeah.
Well, Girls 2, I should say. Because I was not necessarily aware of how well the first one did, which got a 79.
Yeah.
But, like, I was aware of the game. I just, didn't realize it might have been up there. But
Yeah, the first game I felt was pretty popular with fans, but I do think the critics maybe were a bit more mixed on it, but it still got a 79.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very cool-looking game regardless.
Yeah, I mean, this is a way forward game.
Yeah.
And they pretty much always put out really polished things. It's published by Arc System Works, so you know it's going to get some backing. The first game was well received, and it has a very, flashy art style still. It stands out.
Yeah, it looks like a neat beat-em-up, basically.
I feel like beat-em-ups have kind of seen a bit of a resurgence lately. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think they've found a new kind of popularity after dying off for a while, that's for sure.
I feel like Streets of Rage 4 kind of kicked off a revival.
Yeah, that would sound about right.
Like Trek to Yomi was a beat-em-up too and all that kind of looking. Yeah, this looks good. It's going to probably score like a 78, pretty solid. It doesn't have a solid release date, but they've been talking about it being developed a while ago, and I think it's already seen some advertisement.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that takes us to Somerville.
Somerville is very interesting.
Yeah, this one looks very cool.
Yes, this could be a big one.
Absolutely. Well, makers of Inside.
Yeah, or it's not quite the makers, but it's close enough.
It's got some of them.
Yeah, it's got the studio's co-founder.
Yeah,
and he was the executive producer, but doesn't have the full studio.
Yeah, I think if it's got the same kind of polish as Inside, then it'll do well.
It's apparently a different genre. It's an adventure game, like science fiction adventure, but like Inside and Limbo were both highly popular.
Well, and I think as well, like that's why I say polish as well, because like Inside was just so well executed, and like just down to things like the animations were beautifully done, and little technical things like that were just spot on in that game.
Exactly.
So if it has that same kind of, level of quality, I think it'll resonate well with critics in that sense.
It's not going to be rough around the edges.
And it looks cool.
I imagine the main worry in this game is if it comes out.
Yeah.
But I could see this game scoring very highly as a very late pick. So that's pretty good overall. It's a good pick by Dragon, I think.
And then Everdread's counterpick Card Shark, Dragon's last pick.
You can definitely tell this is one of the games I think Dragon's pretty personally interested in, because you can tell he went very indie heavy after the start,
Yeah.
Didn't he pick it last year? Yeah, I just checked. He picked it last year as well.
Yeah, he's probably a bit invested in this one.
It's definitely interesting. I didn't really have much to say. I was just going to say Triangle Strategy is the only one he has that has a release date, so it is a bit risky.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like Card Shark is one of those games that could go either way, but looks cool. But I don't know.
It's got a really unique art style. It's got the unique gameplay. But at the same time, if it doesn't resonate with that weirdness, it's going to just be like, what is this?
Yeah,
stop it.
Totally.
And then Mineko's Midnight Market. We basically covered this one in pretty big detail, I thought.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the two best counter picks, probably.
Yeah, I think it's a decent counter pick just on, whether it'll come out and kind of it might not be received as well.
And even if it is received well, I don't think it'll blow up hugely. You won't get like -20 or whatever, right?
I want to be surprised this year. I want to see some like big scores from things we weren't expecting. Like,
I mean, we definitely could.
Yeah.
I could definitely see some that are surprising. The only unfortunate thing for you is that with your 3 counter picks, you'd probably be in games that are like iffy. You'd probably be one of the ones that would get messed up by that.
Yeah, but them's the breaks.
Dragon's got a pretty solid draft, I think. You've got solid games at the start, one of which has a good release date that will probably score pretty well. And then you've got a really risky game, and then you've got a game that's risky, but if it comes out, could easily get like a 90 in the fourth round. And, that's a risk worth rolling and taking.
Yeah, I feel like there's some definitely some interesting ones to keep an eye on in that list.
Yeah. And we started with number 2. Now we end with number 1.
Yep, Alex5101 with FunkyFace Studios got the bottom draft slot this time. And of course, he came first last year. He's our reigning champion. So the one to watch.
Yeah, and by a substantial margin.
Yeah, and, through his own admission, is a heavy researcher and puts in a lot of effort into his picks. So these are probably picks to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's clearly worked out for him. Stalker 2 is the first game, and I imagine this game's going to do well, right?
Absolutely.
Stalker did well. This is a pretty anticipated sequel, isn't it?
Yeah, the only thing that could really go against it is if all the fans who are hyping it up, it doesn't live up to expectations.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like they could do a really good job with this.
Right. It has been a while since they really made any games. Because they only made one game since 2009, and it was Cossacks 3.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other worry.
And what is there to say about random RTS called Cossacks 3 that's a remake, technically, out of nowhere?
Yeah, that was a weird one.
So I do think this does carry risk.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential to be strong, but it does, come with it's a bit of a gamble here and there.
Yeah.
But it does have a strong release date late in the year.
It's a bit late.
Yeah.
If it gets delayed at all, it's probably screwed. But they're not going to want to delay because it's right before Christmas.
I feel like some of those end of the year ones are just, they want that Christmas slot, whether they're ready or not, kind of thing.
I was about to say, the worry is that they're not ready.
Yeah.
And they have a rough start, right?
Yeah.
Like Bethesda, they're like, fuck it, we released Fallout 76. Starfield can come out in a rough time before Christmas. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, that's the Cyberpunk story, isn't it?
Right, exactly. But I think Stalker's more likely to do well than not. But it's one of the first rounders that carries some real risk.
Yeah, it surprisingly is a bit risky, I think.
Tunic.
Yeah, Tunic's one that I had picked last year.
Yes, and I think it looks good.
Yeah, I think it's going to do well. I played the demo and it was very polished. It's got just the right amount of tension as well, I think. Like, there's a little bit of hype around it. Whenever it appears at E3 and stuff, people kind of seem to receive it pretty well.
Is it just me, or does this art style remind you a lot of the Link's Awakening remake?
Couldn't tell you.
All right. Well, for me it did. But, that's not a bad thing.
Like I said, Nintendo's my blind spot.
Yeah, true. But this game definitely looks good. This game, it looks cute. I like it.
Yeah.
It's the kind of game I'd be interested in buying.
Yeah, totally.
And it's got a solid release date. It hits the flex spot. It just seems like a strong pick all around,
From having played the demo as well, like it's got that kind of like with Inside, that kind of thing. It's got that little touch of polish where, like, the animations are good and the graphics are very well suited for what they're trying to deliver. And yeah, it just feels really good.
It looks good. It looks polished, like you said. I think it's, yeah.
It should be a good one, I think.
And now we go to one that actually has released already.
Yes, this was the first release of
Nobody Saves the World, which I thought was interesting, Joaquin.
Yeah, so we already know that it's scored an 81 at time of recording, so it's a good pick.
Which I thought, I did wonder if it could actually get a bit higher, but you're not going to obviously be upset with 81 like ever.
Yeah.
I did wonder if this could get in more into the mid-80s, but this is a good score for it for sure. And I thought this game looked interesting.
Yeah, I think 81 is actually quite a good score for the kind of game this is, like being a top-down hack and slash, kind of very cartoony. It looks great.
Yeah.
But often these types of games don't necessarily really go too high.
I definitely thought something that benefited it is the strong art style with a lot of unique looks, because the whole gimmick of the game obviously requires that.
Well, and especially in motion, it looks so much better than just screenshots can kind of tell.
Yeah, I agree. And it has a multiplayer component that I bet reviewers like.
Yeah,
because that seems to be like a big thing, I find.
Yeah, totally. Well, and it's it's from the guys who made Guacamelee, so that's a pretty good track record there.
Yeah, which was popular.
But yeah, we know that did well. So
Shovel Knight Dig.
I mean, it's a Shovel Knight game.
Pretty much. At first, I didn't know about this game, and if I had known more, I might have picked it, honestly.
Oh, okay.
But at first, I was wondering if it'd be more like Pocket Dungeon or Showdown, but it looks like it's a bit more of a full experience. And then I also realized when I was doing this that Pocket Dungeon actually reviewed way better than I thought. If this comes out, this is one of the steals of the draft, right?
This is definitely one that's like, will it come out? Because I think it's showed up in a couple of drafts before, maybe.
Yes, it showed up last year for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it before and it got delayed again and that kind of thing. So it's kind of, to me, almost in the similar realm as Silksong, where I think it'll do heaps well if it comes out because it's just a Shovel Knight game, so rock on. But if kind of like, I'm worried it won't come out, so...
I mean, one of the benefits compared to Silksong is obviously it's a lot better to lose a fourth rounder and have high value picks earlier than your first rounder, which is usually like your best game.
Yeah, that's a very good way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot better to take that risk here.
Yep.
And not only that, nobody's going to counterpick this game either. So it's got a lot of expected value compared to its draft position.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine this game like an 85.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
It's a Shovel Knight game. It looks really good.
I'm sure it'll be just as good as the others.
And the last one was probably the only one that I thought was kind of from Alex's entire draft.
Oh, really? Pokemon Let's Go 2.
Unannounced.
Yeah, I mean,
if it comes out, it'll be good, but I just do not believe this game is coming out.
Yeah, I think, Clumsy Penguin counterpicked it, of course, and I think...
It was the only game that Alex got counterpicked, too.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones that I think, as you said, it'll if it comes out, it'll probably do well, but do you think it's coming out? Maybe not, so...
Yeah, I'll get like an 80 if it comes out. I just don't see, assuming they didn't do something that Pokemon Company never does with outsourcing, because they almost... Like, the Pokemon Diamond Pearl remakes were crazy just because they let any other studio even do a remake, right?
Yeah.
Did the main company really find time to do Pokemon Let's Go 2 while doing Pokemon Arceus Legends? And the other worry is that if they did, I could see the quality taking a hard dip too.
I mean, I just assume anything that's called Pokemon will do well, but again, it's another kind of, I don't know much about it, so...
I mean, it'll probably do well, but it definitely might not do as well as you might expect from the name Pokemon, I think.
True.
And then Alex got the best counter pick.
Yeah, Pigeon Simulator.
Alex once again might score like 14 from the counter pick position, just shoot up.
I feel like that's kind of what he was going for there. Like,
I mean, that's one of the benefits of getting the last pick. You get first counter pick. If there's anything like that, bam, it's yours.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a good illustration of like the upside to the snake draft as well. Being yes, if you're in last place, sure, you get last first pick, so that's kind of a bummer. But first count is pretty good. So, and like you say, being at either end of the scale gives you those 2 picks in a row, so you can really kind of slam down what you want.
Like you'll notice, I would say, that some of the drafts that seem more strategic, like, say, Jordan's, are ones where you can more strategically are in that position, right?
No, absolutely. Like, yeah, further to the end seems to be a good place to be no matter which end you're at.
Right. And Alex drafts, obviously, in my opinion, seems like one of the strongest ones.
I'd say it's up there.
Stalker 2 is risky, but it still has a pretty good shot of doing good. Tunic seems like a very strong second round. Nobody Saves the World has obviously already done well. It's already got an 81, so you already know he's going to do good. Shovel Knight Dig, if it comes out, high value.
Well, that's why I think the main downsides to Alex's roster is like, the risk of Stalker 2 not living up to expectations, but then those Shovel Knight and Pokemon not coming out.
Well, I'd say mostly Pokemon, because Shovel Knight could come out. I mean, Pokemon Let's Go 2 is on it. Like, the other thing with Shovel Knight is you could drop it at least, but you can't drop Let's Go 2.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. Like, because it hasn't been counted, it can easily be dropped. So
it has the plus side that Pigeon Simulator, in all likelihood, if Let's Go 2 does not exist, right? Then Pigeon Simulator basically makes up for it by being a plus whatever, probably, right? So it kind of wins that pick back. The biggest issue is if Stalker 2 does bad, then there might not be enough power unless everything goes right.
Yeah, that's the one I'd be probably worried about the most, really. But it has the potential to be good, so...
Yeah, I mean, as long as they hit like 80 or so, Alex will probably take it, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And I think you'll agree with my suggestion that Alex is one of the ones more likely to do really good on bidding because they're so plugged into, the research and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens this year as well with, because it was Alex's first year last year. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes this year. Not to put him in a bad position or anything, but just to see if the same research kind of pays off in the same way. And I imagine it would, to be honest. But
I mean, the real question is, will he pick up anything like Chicory? That game, that was an insane pickup.
But that's what I mean. Like, it'll be good to see what kind of consistency can come from that kind of research and stuff, especially for someone like me who I don't necessarily research too much. Like, I'll have a cursory look, but I won't really get too hardcore into it.
Last year, me and Alex both did really well, and I would definitely say I'm also someone who researches a lot,
Yeah, totally.
So, will we once again go really high? Will we falter? I wonder, Poke&Paw does a lot. Poke&Paw seems like they are plugged in too,
I'd say it's interesting as well. Like, I've got third both in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, you've been super consistent.
And I haven't researched in those years at all.
I mean, Average Red's got fourth, and this year and last year, I'd say he's mostly just I'm picking the really popular stuff,
So yeah, it's interesting just to see how it'll all unfold over the year. But I think everyone's got, for the most part, a pretty strong footing to begin with.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of will do it for the post-draft wrap-up, I guess, or analysis.
The post-draft grading.
Thanks heaps to FrozenRoy for coming on and giving all his excellent insights with so much more information than I would have ever brought up myself.
Thank you. I mean, if you ever want me to come back.
Well, yeah, I mean, anyone listening to this as well, I plan to do kind of updates, maybe about every once a month or so, but, it's a bit loose, so don't hold me to that. But
yeah, because I imagine some months it'd be one person picked up one game. Not much to say.
Well, yeah, and just, real life kind of commitments and stuff as well. But if anyone is interested in coming on as a guest, I'd love to have other players on and stuff as well. So, hit me up on Discord or something and we'll sort it out. But yeah, for now, thanks again to Roy. And any final thoughts?
I think this was overall, in my opinion, it felt like everyone drafted a lot better than last year.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Not necessarily say people drafted badly last year, but it felt like last year there was a lot more just wild stuff or stuff that just instantly seemed like a bad pick, like Balan Wonderworld or Werewolf the Apocalypse or whatever.
Well, and I think it reflects in the difficulty of the counter picks this year, which was not as easy as last year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like last year, I mean, honestly, the funniest thing is that last year, Balan Wonderworld wasn't even a counter pick, wasn't even the first counter pick.
And with that little nugget of insight, we'll call it a day. So thanks everyone for listening and or watching. These will always be posted in the forum and the Discord, as well as on the channel where this video is being hosted, and they'll always be in video form because I'll be adding gameplay footage just like I did with this one. But yeah, stay tuned on the forum and the Discord for any future updates, and a big thank you again to Froy, and I'll see you on the next one.